The moment the last Raytax fell, the Winter Seed soldiers erupted in cheers, jumping and shouting, their relief bursting out all at once. Their celebration barely lasted 3 minutes. The ground suddenly trembled beneath their boots. A single, thunderous footstep rolled through the forest, much heavier and deeper than anything they'd heard during the battle. The sound alone made their blood run cold. What was that? One of the younger soldiers stammered, fear draining the color from his face. They had just survived a desperate fight against a Raytax horde, given everything they had. And now something even worse was coming? Was peace really too much to ask for? Brandon's expression twisted the moment he heard the step. "This is bad," he hissed. He sprinted straight to Rowan. "Lord Rowan, we have to leave. Now, staying here for even one more second is basically suicide." Rowan turned to him and could clearly see the fear in his eyes. Blaze, still perched on his shoulder, reacted the same way as before, shivering, reminding Rowan there was another threat closing in. "We can't run," Rowan said calmly. Brandon blinked. "What? If we leave, whatever's coming will head for the nearest human settlement. That's our village. Winterseed can't withstand something like this." The two captains rushed over, minds racing as they tried to think of a way out, but every plan they came up with died half-formed. Nothing they imagined could handle what was approaching. "Take them in and fall back to the village," Rowan said. "I'll deal with the monster." Everyone froze. "Lord Rowan, we can't accept that," one of the captains protested immediately. "It's too dangerous." "We should all retreat together," Brandon insisted. "The village has finally started to recover since you woke up. We can't risk losing you now." Some of the nearby soldiers heard that and clenched their fists. They were terrified, but the idea of abandoning Rowan here sat badly with them. "This is our only choice," Rowan said, his tone leaving no room for debate. "If you stay, you'll just die with me. I can handle it." "You can't." Brandon and the captain stared at him for a long second. Everything in them rebelled against it. If something happened to Rowan, the hope of Winterseed, the village would collapse into chaos again. From a budding heaven back into hell. "Everyone fall back." "That's an order," Rowan roared. Their faces hardened. Orders were orders. "Please don't leave us again, Lord Rowan," one soldier shouted, voice cracking. "Lord Rowan, come back alive. We're counting on you," another yelled. One by one, they grabbed their weapons and sprinted toward Winterseed, boots thudding against the earth. The captains and Brandon lingered for a few extra seconds, glancing back at Rowan, silently praying, before forcing themselves to retreat with the rest. Only when they were far enough away did Rowan finally turn back to the forest. The footsteps grew louder, the vibrations heavier, but he didn't move. Sending them away was the only way to clear this quest and keep his people alive. He couldn't afford casualties, and he definitely couldn't afford to lose the evolution points that would come from this fight. Squeak! Blaze, trembling, tapped rapidly against Rowan's neck, urging him to run. As a divine beast, Blaze could naturally sense mana, and the mana coming from this thing was crushing, cold, and terrifying. Rowan glanced at him. "Go back," he said quietly. He opened the portal and sent Blaze back to the divine beast plane. Even as the little creature was dragged in, it kept squeaking frantically, doing everything it could to change Rowan's mind. Shriek! A piercing shriek split the air, so sharp it seemed to strip the warmth from the world. The ground shuddered. The forest fell into a tense, suffocating silence. The Raytax horde had only made bushes rustle when they moved. This thing made trees sway. Shriek! Another screech tore through the night. Then it stepped out. A monstrous Raytax, 3 times larger than the others, even bigger than the largest elephant Rowan had seen on Earth. Its body was covered in dense, jet-black fur, so dark it would have vanished completely in the night if not for Rowan's enhanced vision. The creature stopped, staring at the piles of dead Raytax scattered across the clearing. While it took in the scene, Rowan took the chance to analyze it. Raytax General, Boss Monster. Health, 100%. Special Skill, Resistance. Status, Observing. A boss monster, huh? This is going to hurt, Rowan muttered. He immediately used copy. Skill, Resistance, F rank, copied successfully. Resistance, passive skill, reduces damage taken from physical and magical attacks by 20%. Merge? Rowan's eyes lit up. His first defensive skill, and not a bad one either. On top of that, this was the first F-rank skill he'd seen. Everything else so far had been FF-rank trash. He confirmed the merge. A strange sensation washed through him, as if an invisible layer settled over his skin and bones, reinforcing everything from the inside out. He didn't have time to enjoy it. Threat has entered rage mode. All stats increased by 200%. Beware. The system's warning flashed before him as the Raytax general's eyes burned with murderous fury. Its massive body trembled, muscles coiling. This was going to be a brutal fight. Rowan tightened his grip on his weapon, heart pounding, but his gaze stayed steady. "Come on then," he whispered. "Let's see who breaks first." Night pressed down on the mountains as Brandon and the soldiers sprinted back toward the village, faces tight and grim. None of them felt relief. They had just done the one thing a soldier should never do: leave their lore behind. Brandon and the two captains wore the worst expressions of all, crushed by the fact that, once again, they'd been too weak and had to rely on their young lord to protect them. As they neared the village boundary, a bone-chilling shriek tore through the night. The sound rolled over them like thunder, far louder and more terrifying than anything the farmers heard in the distance. Even so, it was enough to twist fear into every villager's heart. That cry, Lord Rowan must be fighting it right now. Ancestors, please give him strength. Every soldier prayed silently as they pushed themselves harder. When they crossed into Winterseed, they saw farmers staring from the fields and paths with confusion and unease. The villagers had watched them leave with Rowan just a short time ago. Now the soldiers were back without him. Among them was Riella, carrying a basket of fresh apples meant for Rowan. At the first sign of commotion, she dropped the basket and ran toward the panting soldiers. "Where is Lord Rowan?" she demanded, eyes locking onto Brandon at the front of the group. His labored breathing and exhausted expression told her they hadn't just taken a casual run. The question was aimed at Brandon, but every soldier heard it and dropped their gaze, ashamed. "Lord Rowan will be back soon," Brandon forced out. "He ordered us to return to the village first." His answer didn't convince anyone. Panic and guilt bled through his voice, and everyone could see it. "How could you leave Lord Rowan alone at the edge of the South Forest?" an old farmer shouted. "That makes no sense. You're hiding something." Murmurs rose immediately. The others agreed. Brandon's explanation didn't hold up. Suspicion spread like wildfire. Riella stared at him, heart pounding, waiting for the real answer. She already felt the cold knot of dread forming inside her. One of the captains beside Brandon finally stepped forward, shoulders tense. "Lord Rowan is fighting a monster," he said. "He'll return when it's done. Until then, no one is allowed near the South Forest. Go home, now." The word monster sent a visible shiver through the crowd. They were instantly reminded of the attack from the previous night, the one that had nearly wiped them out. "This isn't a request," the captain snapped, frowning deeply. "All of you, back to your homes." The villagers looked up at him. Captain Bryce, one of the strongest men in Winterseed. His authority and tone left no room for argument. Reluctantly, they obeyed, scattering back toward their homes. Bryce remained at the border with the other captains, staring out toward the dark line of the forest. Brandon, still shaken, chose to stay as well. A few minutes later, Roland and a few more senior captains returned from patrol with stormy faces. The moment they heard Bryce had let Rowan face the threat alone, they exploded, berating him for abandoning their lord. But when Bryce finished explaining what had happened, Rowan's order, the monster's presence, the risk to the entire village, they fell silent, expressions darkening with understanding. Threat has entered rage mode. All stats increased by 200% for 60 seconds. Beware. The warning flashed, and Rowan's eyes narrowed. Defeating the Raytax general had just gone from difficult to brutal. But he didn't flinch. He still had a few cards he hadn't played. Across from him, the Raytax general finished studying the corpses of its pack. Its eyes burned with hatred as it turned its gaze on Rowan. Mana surged around it like a wildfire. Under the cover of darkness, the two of them, man and monster, faced each other in the clearing. The wind whipped past, but neither moved. Predators, both of them, waiting for the other to make the first mistake. The Raytax general shrieked and charged. Its clawed feet tore into the ground as it thundered toward Rowan. "Come on, then," Rowan muttered with a sharp grin, tightening his grip on his sword as he sprinted straight at it. They collided in an instant. The Raytax general swung a massive clawed fist at him, trying to crush him in one blow. Rowan dug his heels into the ground, braced his stance, and brought his sword up to block. Steel met bone with a deafening clang that echoed through the forest. The monster didn't stop. It hammered blow after blow at him, claws slashing, fists pounding, shrieks rumbling from its throat like distant thunder. Rowan stayed on the defensive, absorbing the impact, feeling out its rhythm. Fast for something this big, he thought, teeth gritted. But that's the rage boost talking. Right now, he relied on 3 skills. Night vision to track every tiny movement, sword grandmaster to keep up technically, and resistance to blunt the damage from each blow. He waited, letting the general burn through its frenzy. Then the notification appeared. Rage state has ended. There it is, Rowan thought, eyes lighting up. The Raytax general's speed and power dropped sharply. Its attacks were still lethal, more than enough to pulp an ordinary soldier. But compared to before, it was sluggish. Rowan surged to the side, dashing past a swiping claw. Shriek! The general shrieked in fury as it tried to turn, its massive body pivoting slowly. Just as he'd expected, the size that gave it power also chained its movements. Now at its flank, Rowan dismissed his sword into his inventory and leapt, aiming for its neck. He didn't quite make it. Too tall, but his hands found purchase in its thick fur, and he began to climb. The beast roared and thrashed, twisting violently to shake him off. The fur under his fingers pulled and tore, but he held on, dragging himself inch by inch up its back. Its bulk worked against it. For all its power, the Raytax general moved like a slow, enraged mountain. Rowan finally hauled himself up to the base of its neck and hooked his arms around it for balance. Shriek! Shriek! The monster's shrieks shifted, no longer just enraged, but panicked. It could feel death looming over its weakest point. "Die, you fucking monster!" Rowan roared. He summoned his sword back into his hand and drove the blade down into the thick flesh of its neck. Shriek! The Raytax general went berserk. Fear exploded into madness as pain lanced through its body. It whipped and bucked without control, slamming itself around the clearing, no longer caring if it injured itself in the process. Rowan's world turned into a blur of violent motion. Even with both hands gripping the matted fur, he was nearly thrown off every few seconds. His muscles screamed, his fingers burned. "Shit!" he spat, dismissing the sword again, so he could use both hands just to stay on. From this height, a fall would mean shattered bones at best, death at worst. With a monster wave coming, he couldn't afford either. "Stop thrashing, you motherfucker!" he shouted, knuckles white as he clung to the beast's back. His fingers ached and his arms trembled, but he refused to let go.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
As the stranger highlighted from the carriage, the women felt a strong sense of fear as they looked at him. It was nighttime, and the moonlight was very dim, so they couldn't see his face clearly. After he came down, he looked around the forest and, astonishingly, found the exact spot where all of them were hiding, as though he could see them clearly even though the thick trees were obviously blocking his sight. Ow! The 6 of them all had the same question in their minds at this moment. They were out of his sight, yet he still spotted them precisely. How was that even possible? As for the young man, he observed their location once more before speaking. 5 beautiful women hiding in the woods at night? That's not good. What are you all hiding from? Feel free to tell me, and I'll help you. His voice and accent were foreign, but he had a friendly tone as he spoke. Alara and the other women were shocked. His accent and the fact that he found them, even though it seemed impossible, were truly frightening. What did this person want from them? Alara was stuck in a tight position. Keeping quiet in this situation was not a good idea since the man had already found them. Who are you? How did you find us? She asked. The young man's eyes darted immediately to the spot where she was hiding, and a smile crept onto his lips. My name's DeAndre. No need to worry about how I found you all. While we're chatting, why don't you step out of your hiding spot? It's not really safe. Hearing his response made the women question his identity even more. However, at this moment, they had no choice. They could already tell, just from his unrealistic, precise sight, that he was not ordinary. Alara was the first to step out. She walked toward DeAndre, her eyes fixed on him, revealing her uncertainty. The other women followed her, revealing themselves completely to DeAndre, who observed them with a calm smile on his face. The women left a lot of distance between themselves and him, but he wasn't worried about that. DeAndre proceeded to ask them a few questions: their names, where they were coming from, where they were heading, and why they were hiding. Alara answered the questions as brilliantly as she could, keeping out all the details that could hurt them. Hearing her response, DeAndre realized that they were in a pretty harsh situation. No need to worry anymore. I'll take you all back to your village. My carriage has enough room for all 6 of you. You can have a proper rest while you're in there, he replied with a smile. You want to help us? What? Alara asked with a frown. No reason at all. Just being a gentleman who wouldn't leave lovely women like yourselves alone in this lonely and dangerous forest, DeAndre answered. The women looked among themselves. Based on what they had heard from this stranger and the aura he gave off, he seemed really friendly and kind. However, they would not let their guard down just because of that. Men would do anything to get in a woman's underwear. This thought kept ringing in their ears, making them even more cautious. Understand, it's tough for you all to trust coming with me, feeling like your privacy's at risk. So, I'll ride up top on the carriage. Unfortunately, my carriage doesn't have a coach box, as I've never really needed one. I could use one at a time like this, DeAndre replied. After hearing his words, the women doubted in their hearts, but they knew they had no choice in this matter, as this man did not look or feel ordinary to them. To be able to precisely spot them in the dark was extraordinary. They wondered who he really was. After further thoughts, they finally agreed to go with him. When they gave him their response, DeAndre smiled happily, like he had just won a jackpot. Then he waved his hand gently in a noble manner and led them to the carriage. The women exchanged looks before walking towards the carriage, while DeAndre stood behind. Magically, before they got to the door, it opened by itself, shocking them. Don't worry about that. You'll be even more amazed when you step inside, DeAndre boasted. The women swallowed nervously before stepping into the carriage one after another. Just as DeAndre said, they were astonished by the view inside the carriage. From the outside, it looked only like a wooden container with no sort of decoration, but the inside was the total opposite. It was a very big room, with more than 6 large beds placed in it, and there was still more than enough space to fit 3 more beds. There was also a very large cupboard at the far end of the room made of fine wood. On the walls, there were glowing crystals that provided a soft glow, giving it a very luxurious appearance. This is amazing. The rooms in Glenwood can't compare to this one in terms of beauty. It looks like something out of a fairy tale. The women reacted excitedly as they sprinted towards the beautiful beds. Alara watched with a serious expression, which relaxed after a few seconds. This is amazing, she thought before strolling toward her bed with a neutral smile on her face. She was sad Alara wasn't here to enjoy this view. What might she be going through in Glenwood right now? I hope those bastards didn't lay their hands on her, she thought. DeAndre observed the women's reactions from the door with a proud smile on his face. I told you all you'd be even more surprised, didn't I? Anyway, if you're a bit hungry or thirsty, feel free to help yourself in the cupboard. There's some fresh food in there, plus a bit of wine and water if that's what you fancy. He spoke to them for a few seconds before shutting the door and climbing onto the roof of the carriage. Open inventory, he muttered. Following his words, a large system interface appeared midair, displaying many items in different spots. If Rowan were here, he would be very envious. DeAndre took out a can of beer similar to the ones on Earth and closed the inventory. He then muttered a few strange words, and the horses began speeding through the narrow road down to Winterseed Village. "Time to reel in a new customer," he said with a smile on his face as he took a big gulp. "Ding! Your pet, Blaze, has broken through from low-stage Foundation Realm to mid-stage Foundation Realm. Ding! Your pet, Blaze, has broken through from mid-stage Foundation Realm to high-stage Foundation Realm. Ding! Fireball LV1. Fireball LV2, 30 minutes cooldown reduced to 5 minutes. Ding! Your pet has awakened a new skill, Flame Synchronization LV1. Flame Synchronization. At this level, grants 20% mental synchronization with fire. Rowan observed the congratulatory messages with a shocked expression on his face. He then looked at Blaze, who had already begun descending to the ground after having 2 stages of breakthrough in his cultivation in less than 2 minutes. Blaze's eyes shone with brilliance as it landed on the ground. Its body seemed to have undergone some noticeable changes. It now looked a little bigger than it was a minute ago, and a calm, fiery aura surrounded its body. After landing, Blaze began jumping around in joy, excitement clear on its face, before sprinting towards Rowan and leaping into his hands. "This feels so good. I feel a lot stronger after eating that." A strange voice echoed in Rowan's head, sounding like that of a 2-year-old baby who had just started to speak. Rowan turned to look at Blaze strangely. This was the first time he had heard such a voice in his head. It appeared that Blaze had not only grown physically and in cultivation, but had also grown mentally, creating a better connection between them. "This is a great development, Blaze. When we get home, you'll get 2 food pills as a reward." Rowan smiled and patted Blaze's head. "You better fulfill your promise." Blaze replied cheerfully. Blaze. Race, Ash Firewolf. Foundation Realm. High Stage, 7%. Unlock Skills. Fireball. LV2. Flame Synchronization. LV1. Rowan decided to observe Blaze's stats one last time before sending it into the Divine Beast plane. After sending Blaze back, he turned his gaze to the Raytax General's corpse lying among the smaller Raytax corpses, with a disappointed expression on his face. This much meat could have fed the village for at least a month, but unfortunately, the meat from Raytax contains poisonous elements that lead to various harmful effects, including night blindness, which can only be cured with special herbs. Rowan sighed and began making his way down to the village. Many plans were on his mind, and much work needed to be done. The days remaining before the war were dwindling. He still needed to implement several strategies to ensure a safe victory. "I still have a mole to catch as well," Rowan muttered as he strolled home. "No matter how much I use my observation skills on that person, I never manage to figure out their identity. This person is truly a master spy. Too bad he's not on my side. He would have been a very important asset in the war." Winterseed Village. Inside a random hut, Roland could be seen sitting in a shabby room with his wife and son. He was standing, leaning against the wall while his wife sat on the bed holding their baby, who looked much healthier than he did 2 days ago. "Darling, why didn't you go to help Lord Rowan? You know our village would be doomed without him. He's our only saving grace now." She paused, her voice trembling slightly as she looked at their son. "Without him, our son's future would be filled with sadness and hardship." Roland didn't reply, but the frown on his face became even more evident. Though he understood the reason Bryce left, he still felt that leaving was a bad decision. "He'll be okay," he murmured. "Ow." His wife immediately refuted. "I don't know, but he will be okay. I believe that. You shouldn't worry about that now, because it would only cause you more stress, and stress at a time like this is not good for your health. My health is only this good because Lord Rowan returned. Remember? Look at our baby," she urged, her voice tight with worry. "He's getting healthier, yes, but that could all change in an instant. If anything happens to Lord Rowan, Glenwood will sweep in like vultures. They'll enslave us, take our homes, and turn our children into servants, or worse. This isn't just about losing a leader, it's about losing everything, she continued. Roland and his wife had a major argument, with Roland trying to calm his wife down while she bombarded him with reasons she couldn't. She also mentioned a fact that made Roland even more worried. You said you and the captains would stand in place of our Lord if anything happened to him. Have you forgotten that our village no longer possesses a staff of authority? Have you forgotten? Lord Rowan is only the Lord now because he is the direct descendant of Dragon Winterseed. If anything happens to him, we will never get a real Lord unless a staff of authority is found. Without a Lord, our village would be claimed easily. Roland rethought everything. Rowan is only seen as a real Lord because of his father. The only reason Glenwood can't take full control of their village is that a Lord is still alive, ruling it. If anything should happen to Rowan, even if they chose another village head, as long as he is not a direct descendant of Rowan and doesn't possess a staff of authority, his position would be invisible to Glenwood, as he is not a recognized leader. With that, they can easily take over Winterseed without even needing to kill him, because he wasn't a lord in the first place. The dynamic of leadership in a vast world of the Emperor's domain is strange, mysterious, and unique. After rethinking these words repeatedly, Roland finally realized the difficulty of the situation. His eyes shone with a cold glow as he grabbed his sword, strolled towards his wife, knelt before her, and caressed the baby in her arms before looking up at her face. "I'll be back very soon," he said. Without waiting for a reply, he ran out of the house. His wife watched him with a proud yet sad expression, silently praying for his and Lord Rowan's safety. However, as Roland stepped outside, he was shocked to see all the soldiers, both young and old, marching toward the South Forest. "You're coming as well?" Bryce asked him. Roland nodded. Together, the soldiers, concerned about their lord's safety, began storming the South Forest. In the dark hours of the night, the villagers, after hearing of their lord's heroic actions, began to doubt his survival. Women prayed, children worried, and a few brave men stepped out of their homes, ready to face whatever adversary lay beyond the village border. At this moment, more than 400 men could be seen marching towards the south entrance. "Do you think Lord Rowan's okay?" someone whispered. "What kind of monster did he face?" "That shriek, it didn't sound like an easy fight," another added. "We pray Lord Rowan is still alive. I don't mind laying down my life for his as long as our village gets to see him in the morning. He is the only one that can save us and take us towards greater heights." They all discussed among themselves, sharing the same thoughts filled with worries, doubts, and a tiny spark of hope. Roland, Bryce, Bruce, Josh, and Oliver, the 5 captains, marched gallantly in front of their soldiers as they got closer to the border. They all kept praying for Rowan's safety. Meanwhile, beyond the border, Rowan could be seen strolling toward the village with a big smirk on his face. "I wonder what meal Riella prepared for me today. Though, I'd like to eat her before eating," he thought with so much joy and calmness, a deep contrast to his village's current condition. As he got closer to the border of his village, he began hearing loud footsteps, sounding like the marching of 1,000 soldiers toward the battlefield. What is happening? Rowan's heart skipped a beat as he began to panic. Don't tell me Glenwood is already attacking my village. But that can't be. I would have got a notification that something like that is taking place. Rowan looked in the direction of the village. There was no one in sight. He could only see the farms and the big trees that made up the southern part of Winterseed. His worries increased by the second. He brought out the sword from his inventory and began sprinting towards the village at top speed, unafraid of the heavy footsteps heading his way. As he sprinted towards the village, his eyes kept scanning the surroundings in search of danger, but there was none. The area was serene and peaceful. Only the footsteps altered the calm environment. However, unaware of their lord's arrival, the soldiers kept discussing as they marched even faster towards the border. At the moment, they were just a few meters away from leaving the territory of Winterseed. Their faces held grim expressions. Their hearts prayed for the safety of themselves and their lord. Their hands clenched their weapons intensely. The 5 captains marching in front finally made it past the border. Roland and Bryce signaled the soldiers to a quiet halt. Bryce had a frown on his face. If Lord Rowan is still fighting the monster, there should be noise coming from that direction, but I can't hear anything right now. Not even a shriek from the monster, he said. The others agreed. What could this mean? Please, let it not be what I think it is. Is Lord Rowan dead? No, it can't be. The soldiers reacted one after the other after hearing Bryce's words, while the other captains frowned. Keep your voices down, everyone. Do you want to draw the attention of the monster towards the village? Bryce reprimanded the young soldiers immediately. The noise they were generating at this moment could wake the monster if it was anywhere nearby, leading to many unplanned casualties. We should march forward. No matter what the fate of our beloved Lord is, we must not cower behind in the village. Bryce announced again, and they began marching again. However, before they could move ahead further, someone in the group spotted a dark figure speeding towards them. The figure sprinting towards them had the same structure as a human being. However, its speed and the way it ran made it difficult to categorize it as a human being. It must be a monster. Something is running towards us, he alerted with a shaky voice. His voice immediately triggered the soldiers. They stared ahead, and with a very dim light from the moon, they were able to make out a figure running towards them at a speed they hadn't witnessed before. The young soldiers panicked immediately. Some of them even started praying loudly to their ancestors to grant them protection. The captains, who had experienced battles in the past, were also perplexed. What monster could run at such inhumane speed? A humanoid monster. This is more dangerous than we already expected. Everyone, prepare your weapons and get ready to attack on my signal. Roland quickly drew his sword and stood in front of the soldiers, observing the approaching monster. The soldiers did the same. At that moment, everyone had their weapons ready. Roland observed their expressions for a few seconds, lifted his sword, and dropped it down swiftly. Attack! Following his words, the soldiers let out a collective battle cry and began sprinting towards the monster. The sound of their feet as they ran towards the monster echoed across the area. The moon hung in the sky and graced them with its dim glow. The air around them was thick with tension and all their pent-up emotions. Nevertheless, as they stormed their enemy, they noticed something really strange. Why is it not moving anymore? One soldier asked his colleague as they ran together. I don't know. Maybe it is afraid of our numbers, his colleague replied uncertainly. The ancestors are indeed gracing us tonight. The monster has been weakened by the mysterious powers of our valiant forefathers. As the soldiers discussed, the captains became even more confused. Bryce and Roland frowned deeply. What was the meaning of this? Why would the monster suddenly stop? Is it preparing a powerful magical attack to blast them out of the battlefield, or maybe activating its inner magic to gain an upper hand? Whatever the case, it remained a mystery to them. Wait, did that monster just facepalm itself? Someone suddenly voiced out. It was a sight that shocked everyone. A monster facepalming? How rare was that sight? Is this some sort of new breed of monster with the same brain as humans? All of Rowan's pent-up anger, worries, and panic died down when the soldiers came into sight and their stats appeared before him. They were none other than his very own soldiers. He facepalmed and let out a loud sigh before proceeding to speak in a loud voice. Everyone, it is me. Where the hell are you all running towards like that? He let out with a tinge of annoyance in his voice. Following his voice, the soldiers halted at once. Their collective reactions spread across the air. One of your soldiers faints from shock. 100 soldiers sighed in relief. 100 soldiers collapsed in relief. 200 soldiers praised the gods for their protection. Your soldiers were smiles on their faces. 2 of your soldiers grit their teeth. 2 of your soldiers cursed their luck that you are alive. 2 of your soldiers stomped the ground in annoyance and cursed the monsters for not killing you. Seeing the last 3 prompts, a tired expression appeared on Rowan's face. There are 2 of them now? How troublesome. I couldn't even catch the first one, and now they have multiplied. This is going to be a difficult task, he muttered. He used his inspection skill to check all the soldiers his eyes could meet at this moment, but there were no changes. They were all the same, No one looked too out of place or had a status that sold them out. This made Rowan even more confused, as it seems his suspect have a pretty tricky ability to camouflage their emotions and fool everyone, including his system. Rowan could only let out a sigh and forget about them. After all, he already had an active plan in place, ready for the war that is to come. Even if the number of spies multiplies, his plans would still prevail. Wearing a smile, he strolled to meet his soldiers and calm their hearts. As they walked back to the village, Rowan began giving details about his accomplishments after they left. His cool tales of defeating a giant Raytax monster with flashy sword moves and impressive movements made the younger soldiers admire him even more. The captains smiled with pride as they listened to their young lord. On the other hand, Rowan farmed a large chunk of evolution points. 480 soldiers are inspired, plus 5,000 evolution points. 100x rewards activated, 500,000 evolution points have been added. Your captains are proud of your accomplishments. After Rowan and the soldiers returned, the villagers who had refused to sleep, knowing their lord was in trouble, stepped outside their homes to welcome them with happy smiles, some even breaking down in tears. With Rowan surviving against a powerful monster, their hope for a better tomorrow grew even stronger. Only after Rowan retired to his room did they leave for their various homes. With no worries in their hearts, they could now sleep and await a new day. Brandon and Riella stayed with Rowan the whole time, refusing to leave his side. Brandon only left after Rowan retired to his room, but Riella, who looked very worn out from crying so much, refused to leave. "You should go to sleep, Riella," Rowan said with a calm smile. While he would not reject a beauty sleeping next to him, he could not trust himself to stay sane during the process. Judging by her current state, such activity would only wear her out even more. "I want to stay with you," Riella replied in her sweet, angelic voice, her head bowed shyly as she fidgeted with her fingers. "Are you sure? You know, two adults of opposite genders can't sleep in the same room without the urge to make babies arising. Do you really want to carry my babies so soon?" Rowan asked. He opened his door and took a step inside the hut, looking back at Riella, whose face had turned red following his words. "Aye," she stuttered. Rowan noticed her difficulty in coming up with an answer and couldn't help but smile appreciatively at her innocence. "O God or goddess of sex, this faithful believer prays that you make my little brother lazy tonight, for thy servant finds it difficult to control in the presence of temptation," Rowan prayed inwardly. Riella was still standing, and from the looks of it, nothing he said would change her mind. "All right, come sleep with me tonight. I know you're worried I might do something risky again." Rowan surrendered and let her in. Riella smiled cheerfully as she walked into the room. As she passed him while entering, Rowan had to fight the strong urge to spank her. After Riella got in, Rowan locked the door from the inside and walked closer to Riella, who sat on the bed, her innocent eyes scanning the room, even though she had been in it before. "Riella, I have something I would like to give you," Rowan said. "What is that?" Riella asked. "It's a book containing a special tailoring skill." "A special tailoring skill?" Riella's eyes lit up after hearing his reply. "Yes, Riella, the skill will increase your efficiency in the art and also give you the ability to transfer your tailoring knowledge easily to others interested in learning. Very soon, we will have bulk supplies of raw clothing material, and I want you to be in charge of it. This skill will make your work much easier and faster." The more Rowan spoke, the more interested Riella became. As someone who loved her art, she was always ready to use it to help Rowan and the village at large. Hearing that she would get to help made her really excited. She became so excited that she stood up abruptly, facing Rowan with a cheerful smile and proclaiming her readiness. Rowan nodded with a smile, already knowing she would accept. Without wasting time, he brought out the skill book and gave it to Riella. She was so curious to observe the skills that she ignored the fact that the book had appeared out of thin air. Immediately after receiving the book, she flipped it open, eager to see what awaited her. On the first pages, there were a series of texts and illustrations that she understood easily. She read through them in a matter of 2 minutes and flipped to the next page. Riella, comprehending skill, Threadmaster Apprentice Training, 10%. As she flipped through the pages of the skill book, Rowan couldn't help but notice her rapid comprehension. It was even more shocking than the comprehension speed of the captains. At this rate, she might end up comprehending all of it in less than an hour. It was indeed a significant comprehension speed. And just as he predicted, after 1 hour, Riella has comprehended Threadmaster Apprentice training successfully. Skill will level up the more Riella utilizes it and makes progress. As Rowan observed the prompts, Riella closed the book and turned to him with an excited look on her face. "I have comprehended it completely," she exclaimed happily. "That's really fast and impressive." "Come here," Rowan responded with a smile, hugging her and patting her back. In his embrace, Riella couldn't stop smiling, happy she was able to impress Rowan and had acquired a skill to help the village. "You can start gathering those interested tomorrow. Once we've taken over Glenwood, I'll construct a large place for you and your students." "I'm certain you'll do a great job," Rowan continued, his praise making her smile even more. Her motivation was boosted not only by his praises but also by his super voice. As her motivation grew, Riella began happily chatting about some creative idea she had, how beautiful they would be, and how they would sustain the villagers in different weather conditions. As she chatted with him, she felt very free and peaceful. She felt no need to hide anything from him. They talked for more than an hour before Riella finally fell asleep on Rowan's chest. As she slept peacefully, Rowan couldn't help but observe her face with a calm smile as his mind raced with many thoughts. It was strange, even to Rowan, that a woman as sexy as Riella was lying on his lap, yet he didn't feel the need to sexually devour her as he did with other women in his previous life. He wondered if it was because his feelings for her were true, pure love and not carnal lust, or if the god and goddess of sex had actually answered his prayers and made his little brother weak for the night. After a few minutes, Rowan too fell asleep as the weariness from the previous battle kicked in. The atmosphere in the room was serene and peaceful, a stark contrast to the atmosphere looming over Glenwood. Glenwood Village hasn't been the same in the last 24 hours. It first started with the blasting of the announcement trumpet, followed by the message of 5 of Lord Fagin's women. This report brought about the beginning of chaos, as soldiers stormed all the streets in search of the women. They entered every house in Glenwood, turning everything upside down in search of them. Sadly, there was no result. Seeing that there was no sign of them in Glenwood, Lord Fagin, infuriated, asked his horsemen to ride down the path leading to Winter Seed in search of them. "If you find them and they resist, kill them," he said to the horsemen before sending them out in search of the women. While he gave these orders, Liera hid behind a room and, sadly, heard everything. Those words kept playing over and over again in her head, causing her to tremble as emotions surged inside of her. She ran back to her quarters and couldn't keep a calm composure. Her mood dampened, eyes reddened, and breath ragged. She simply stared at the walls, recalling those words over and over again. Sadly, her alone time wasn't even peaceful as 2 soldiers soon stormed the room and dragged her out. They dragged her body across the rough ground towards the large hall Lord Fagin used for receiving his guests. There, she could see the different able-bodied men and some classily dressed women gathered together, looking at her with hateful eyes. "Drag that bitch over here," Lord Fagin roared in anger. The guards immediately obeyed. They dragged her and tossed her in the middle of the hall, where all the eyes in the room could reach her. She could only let out a short cry of pain as her body ached from the rough toss. "You, where are your sisters?" Lord Fagin asked with anger blasting from his voice. Liera could only look at him with terror, refusing to answer. "Are you deaf? Answer my question. Don't act like you are not aware of your sister's plans to kill my soldiers and escape." Lord Fagin's round figure stormed towards her, his fatty flesh swaying disgustingly in the air. "I don't know," Liera replied. "What do you mean? You bitch." Lord Fagin planted a slap across her face. "How dare you lie in front of me?" Liera held her face, now inflicted with the stinging pain from the slap. She realized that it would be even harder to get herself out of this situation. "I wasn't told about their plans. You have to believe me," she immediately replied, tears falling from her face. Fake tears. Lord Fagin, she's clearly lying. This bitch is definitely in on her sister's plans. Who knows? She might even be the one who killed those young, innocent soldiers in order to aid their escape. One of the women in the room said with a scoff. I agree with you. Someone like her does not deserve to live anymore. We should get rid of her immediately. Another woman supported. Liera could tell easily why these women were actively against her just from the wrinkles on their faces. Both are almost the same age as Alara, but unfortunately, their skin wasn't as healthy as hers. The women of Glenwood never liked any of them from the beginning. Some men joined in condemning Liera, suggesting that she be killed immediately. However, one of the captains couldn't help but smirk evilly. Lord Fagin, she looks too weak and innocent to have committed such a crime. How can a woman of such structure kill 3 of our well-trained soldiers at the same time? That is impossible. It is obvious the others grouped up to kill them before leaving. The captain suggested with a serious expression on his face. As he spoke, Liera couldn't help but observe him, and she immediately recognized him. He is Captain Stannis, the same captain who has been trying to steal Alara from Lord Fagin. Why is he trying to help me? What sort of sick thoughts is he harboring towards me right now? Liera's worries increased. The room became real noisy after Captain Stannis' suggestion. Everyone, especially the women, disagreed with his suggestion. Stannis remained calm and didn't even bother to argue with them. He kept his eyes fixed on Lord Fagin, who was fuming like a balloon ready to explode anytime soon. Why are you so pissed off about the departure of women you can't even make love with? I would soon lay my hands on that thing. And when I do, I will claim those women and make love with them every day and ensure you watch. His sick mind raced with dark thoughts. He turned to look at Liera and winked at her. His wink was quickly met with a feisty glare, which caused him to lose composure. Nevertheless, he quickly gained it back. The noise in the room continued, growing even more every second. The tension in the room was palpable at this moment. Quiet down, all of you, Lord Fagin barked. The room immediately fell silent. Only a few murmurs could be heard. I said cease it, he barked again, and the noise died down completely. Everyone turned their heads towards him, ready to hear what he had to say. All these issues started because of your poor security management, Stannis. You were supposed to be in charge of defense while the party was going on, but instead, you drowned yourself in alcohol and left 3 tiny soldiers to guard the gate. Lord Fagin complained with a dark expression, facing the captain who spoke in favor of Liera earlier. How dare a dickless fat fuck speak to me in such a manner? Stannis cursed inwardly. I am very sorry, Lord Fagin. He bowed his head and apologized. Keep your sorry to yourself. You have to take care of this mess because you started it. You will have to apologize to the families of the young soldiers and then take your men outside to search for those women. You are not allowed to return unless you find them, Lord Fagin declared. Hearing his words, the room fell into a deeper silence. I turned to Stannis with pitiful looks. Some who had grudges against him found the order really appealing. But Lord Fagin, Stannis grumbled. No, but Stannis, if I were you, I would kick off my mission immediately. After saying this, Lord Fagin sat back on the large chair in the room, his body already worn out from talking too much. He waved his hand, and almost immediately, 2 maids brought out 2 trays containing different delicacies. Stannis observed Lord Fagin for a few seconds before storming out of the room, swearing in his heart to get his revenge as soon as possible. As Lord Fagin ate his meal, he asked the guard to haul Liera away and lock her up. Liera let herself be taken away without uttering a single word. As she was being taken away, her eyes glowed with a sharp glare of deep hatred that was felt by those who looked into her eyes. Some of the women couldn't help but shiver at the intensity of hatred radiating from those eyes. They were only able to maintain proper composure after she left. Lord Fagin, one man in the room who had been quiet throughout the previous ordeal, finally spoke up. What is it? Lord Fagin grumbled. We need to be ready for war, the man responded. Why? Is it because of small place like Winterseed? Their total number of people isn't even as big as our army. Lord Fagin scoffed. and cleaned his mouth with a napkin. Those women have stayed with us throughout most of our meetings. They have heard a lot of our core battle strategies. If the Lord of Winterseed lays his hands on those strategies, his victory would be easier. So you're trying to say those women left to give out our battle strategy? Lord Fagin asked, not even taking his suggestion seriously. Strategy or not, he believes Winterseed, with their small army, wouldn't be able to defeat his. Not only are his soldiers much greater in number, but they are also well-trained and much stronger than Winterseed's. Yes, my lord. I suggest we attack now, before Winterseed gets the time to act on the information they've received, the man responded. Lord Fagin scoffed, grabbed a chicken wing from the tray, tossed it into his mouth, and devoured it while everyone watched. You shouldn't concern yourself with that. How can their young lord, who hasn't experienced any battle in his life, gain the ability to understand our strategy and make a counter-strategy? It is impossible, he said. Everyone in the room agreed. They believed Winterseed stood no chance at all. Except the one who brought the suggestion, he could only shake his head in pity. Morning arrived quickly, and the sun resumed its duty, providing light to the people of Winterseed. They immediately returned to their daily activities as soon as the first light touched the land. Farmers rushed to their fields, while soldiers, following Rowan's suggestion, did early morning exercises before continuing their duties, some heading to the borders, others to the village square to await training. Everyone in the village was busy and content with their tasks. Rowan woke up a bit later than usual, the weariness from fighting the Raytax general having faded away. Good morning, Rowan. Riella's voice greeted him, drawing his attention. Riella, you're already awake? Did you get enough rest? Rowan asked, noticing the food on the table and realizing she had woken up early. I did, Rowan. I made something for you, she replied, pointing to the food. Rowan sincerely appreciated her gesture. He quickly rinsed his mouth before sitting down to eat. As usual, the meal was delicious. As Rowan ate, he noticed Riella still standing in front of him, her hands folded behind her back. A sweet smile graced her lips, but it was her eyes that caught his attention, bright with an unmistakable hint of eagerness and curiosity. She watched him intently, as if waiting for him to say or do something. Rowan couldn't help but wonder what she was expecting. Is there something you want to ask me, Riella? He asked. I want to see it, she replied in a cheerful tone. Her response left Rowan confused. What is it she wants to see? Don't tell me she wants to see my dragon. See what? He asked with a raised eyebrow. Blaze. Riella's reply made Rowan curse his own thoughts, feeling ashamed. Nevertheless, he wondered how she knew about Blaze. You know about Blaze? How, he asked. Riella replied almost immediately, explaining how the young soldiers wouldn't stop talking about the cute and powerful divine puppy Rowan had summoned out of thin air. As she narrated, her curiosity and interest surged even more as she eagerly anticipated seeing Blaze. Seeing how interested she was, Rowan could tell she had already fallen for the tales of Blaze's cuteness, and he couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. Damn it, Blaze. How dare you be so popular with the women at such a young age? Nevertheless, he didn't hesitate and summoned Blaze from the divine beast plane. As usual, a small portal appeared, and Blaze floated out of it, landing in Rowan's arms. Where are my food pills? You promised to give me 2 when you return home. Blaze immediately demanded after arriving in Rowan's arms. Rowan sent it a cold glare and communicated telepathically, Dream on. You've sinned against me by stealing the heart of my woman. That's not fair. I didn't ask to be made this cute and irresistible. Give me my food pills, or I'll scratch your face with my claws. When did you become a cat? Try that, and I'll cook you. I bet your meat would taste amazing. Rowan threatened playfully. Blaze trembled slightly in his arms, clearly shaken by Rowan's thoughts. Their exchange lasted only a few seconds, unnoticed by anyone else. As Blaze made his appearance, Riella's eyes lit up with excitement. The tiny creature's soft, brilliantly colored fur and innocent, oversized eyes that seemed to peer into her very soul. Every aspect of the little divine beast instantly captured her heart. So cute, she exclaimed, her voice full of delight as she made her way toward them. Seeing the beautiful female human approaching, Blaze quickly puffed out his tiny chest and tilted his head slightly, trying his best to appear even more endearing. With a soft, almost musical purr, Blaze gave Riella a look so heart-meltingly innocent that it could soften the sternest of hearts. Riella's smile widened as she reached out to stroke Blaze's fur, her fingers gently brushing through his soft, silky coat. Blaze stretched out his tiny paws as if asking for an embrace. "Oh my goodness!" Riella giggled, utterly charmed. Without hesitation, she gently took Blaze from Rowan's arms, cradling the little creature. Blaze responded by snuggling deeper into her embrace, letting out soft purrs akin to that of a cat. Rowan couldn't help but watch with amusement and helplessness. "You little traitor, you're not even a cat," he muttered. Riella continued playing with Blaze for about 30 minutes before leaving him with Rowan and heading off to start what they had discussed the previous night. Rowan left afterward as well. He repeated his usual morning routine of visiting the farms with Brandon and Roland. Afterward, he went to train the soldiers. Unfortunately, they couldn't have long sessions as usual, as they had to go collect wood from the southern forest. This time, no one complained since it was still morning, and monsters are always inactive during such periods. They were also confident that any threat arising would be easily handled by their lord. This trust gave them a big boost in confidence and motivation. Rowan decided to take 300 men this time around to make the work faster and avoid working until evening when monsters become active again. When they arrived at the South Forest, they were greeted with a grotesque scene of numerous corpses lying on the ground. Various scavenger animals and birds had already gathered to feed on the corpses. The soldiers who hadn't been there the previous day were shocked to see the bodies. Even those who had been present stared with wide eyes at the gigantic corpse of the Raytax general. Their admiration and confusion at how Rowan was able to kill the gigantic monster earned Rowan more than enough evolution points. After the initial reactions and conversations, the soldiers began working diligently. Some worked together in groups to fell trees. Others joined the captains in bundling the fallen trees, while others carried the bundled wood back to the village. It was still morning, and the weather was ideal for work. The sound of swords attacking would echoed across the forest constantly. Rowan joined in the work, using his sword to fell as many trees as he needed and assisting the other groups. Their work continued for hours. Some soldiers got tired, rested briefly, then resumed working. No one was ready to laze around and let others overshadow their efforts. The harmony as they worked together made Rowan smile proudly as he watched them. After more than 7 hours had passed, the workload finally began to lessen. The required amount of trees had been acquired, and now all that was left was bundling them and transporting them back to the village. "Good work, everyone," Rowan complimented them. His praise added more bliss to their work, and they continued with renewed joy and motivation. Another hour passed, and the trees had been bundled into manageable sizes, and the soldiers began carrying them. Some wood was very heavy, requiring 3 soldiers to carry, while others were quite light. One by one, all the wood was taken away, and everyone strolled back home. On the way, those without would help those who were worn out. It was the early hours of the evening, and the light of the day was still bright, making their journey home much easier. At the south border of Winter's Seed, the farmers and soldiers observed the large amounts of wood arranged into 2 tall pyramid structures with fascination. "Did you guys really do all this yourselves?" some of the farmers asked in disbelief. "There are so many, I can't even count. They also look very big and heavy. How were you able to do all this alone?" they continued, with doubt and fascination in their voices. Even the soldiers couldn't believe they had accomplished all this with their natural strength. It seemed too incredible to be true. Rowan could only smile at their reactions. His super voice played a significant role in the soldiers' motivation and work efficiency, thus boosting their work output significantly. Of course, none of them were aware of this miraculous skill in his possession. "You all did a great job today," Tomorrow, after morning and afternoon training, we'll start working on these woods, splitting them into the needed sizes and also laying out plans for the guardhouse," Rowan announced. The soldiers agreed with a smile, and the farmers rejoiced inwardly. They were all eager to see what Rowan had in store for them. Meanwhile, as Rowan and the villagers gather at the south border, the soldiers stationed at the north border noticed a strange structure moving toward them from afar. They could only make out a horse and a large wooden structure behind it. Nevertheless, the sight made them panic, as they weren't expecting any visitors. "Quickly, inform Lord Rowan." Oliver, the captain with them, ordered immediately. Rowan had just finished addressing the villagers when 3 young soldiers sprinted toward him, their faces etched with exhaustion and worry. The 3 of them came to a halt in front of Rowan and gasped to catch their lost breath. "What is it?" Rowan asked with a frown. "Captain Oliver sent us. There is something coming towards our village from the north," the soldiers reported. "Something coming towards us? What is it? A monster?" Rowan asked, uncertain about their report, wondering if it was monsters. "We haven't confirmed yet, but we can describe it for you." One of them answered and began describing the structure they saw. "A horse-driven carriage," Rowan muttered inaudibly as his mind pictured the perfect imagery of their descriptions. Carriages are sophisticated structures in the world of Emperor's domain. Only wealthy territories with rich and powerful nobles could own them. Even Glenwood, which is far superior to Winterseed, doesn't possess one. The sight of one approaching his village set Rowan's mind racing. Was this a sign that a powerful lord had turned his gaze toward their small village? Or perhaps a wealthy noble, intent on exerting their influence and taking what they wanted from the weak? "How close is it to the village?" He asked the necessary question. "We can't tell exactly because it was moving really fast. It should have arrived at the north border already," they answered. "Run back to Captain Oliver and tell him I'm on my way right now." The soldiers nodded and ran back to the north border. Brandon, Bryce, and Roland exchanged uneasy glances as they stepped closer to Rowan. Despite being part of the oldest people in Winterseed, even they hadn't seen any structure similar to what the soldiers described. In their minds, they pictured a gigantic horse with a strangely shaped hunchback. The other soldiers around Rowan also became really curious and somewhat scared. A box on wheels, pulled by horses? What kind of creature is that? What does it even look like? Could it be an evolved monster with the appearance of a horse? Why am I thinking of a horse with a large wooden hunchback? Hearing their doubtful comments, Rowan shook his head pitifully and decided to explain the structure of a carriage to them. As he explained, their eyes widened with interest. "It is called a carriage? What a cool name. If we had one of those in our village, moving harvest from the farm to our houses would be pretty sweet and easy," a farmer said with dreamy eyes. "With a carriage, we can move more than 10 persons at the same time, with just 2 horses? That is too good to be true. Why haven't I heard about this until now? If it can move more people with fewer horses, then it could be carrying some powerful soldiers to our village as we speak. Oh no, it is an amazing structure, but it is also a weapon in the hands of our enemy. What should we do now? Lord Rowan, what should we do now?" After hearing Rowan's vivid explanations, they reacted just as Rowan expected. First starting with curiosity and interest, then slowly migrating to thoughts of what or whom might lie within the carriage approaching the village. Without taking time, Rowan gave a few orders to Bryce, Roland, and the rest of the villagers before taking the horse and riding down to the north border. Oliver stood in front of his soldiers with a braced expression on his face. He clutched his sword and observed the strange structure being dragged by 2 horses, which was just a few meters away from them. As Oliver observed the structure, he noticed a strange human figure sitting on its roof. As the structure drew closer, he noticed that it was a man, and his mind relaxed a bit, glad it wasn't a monster. "You are in the territory of Winterseed." He quickly yelled at the man on the roof. "Stop this thing and tell us why you are here." He continued, but there was no response. Seeing that there was no response, he turned to the soldiers behind him and gave a quick signal. The soldiers adhered immediately and lifted their weapons at the carriage, ready to attack if it crossed the border. They were still confused about the strange appearance of it, but they were ready to defend their village. Suddenly, the horses neighed and came to an abrupt halt just a small distance away from Oliver, who stood in front of the others. The breeze as the horses came to an abrupt stop blew against Oliver's face. But Oliver kept his stance and pointed his sword at the man on the roof, whose figure became clearer and stranger at the same time. He was a really handsome man with long white hair tied in ponytails. Nevertheless, he was sitting in a strange sitting position, and his eyes were closed, seemingly in a sleep-like state. Seeing him, the soldiers couldn't help but frown and look among themselves, and numerous questions appeared in their minds. The first was how the horse came to a stop without any movement or instruction from the strange man, and secondly, how he was able to remain calm and stable on the roof of a structure that moved with a speed they hadn't witnessed before. The appearance of everything in front of them was clouded in mystery. "You there! Get down and explain yourself. Who are you and why are you here?" Oliver's voice boomed, cutting through the silence. But there was no response, not even a slight movement from the horses or the man on the roof. "Hey you, stop playing deaf ears and answer me." Infuriated, Oliver demanded again, and he got the same treatment. What the heck is wrong with this guy? Is he even alive? Oliver pondered. Oliver turned to look at the horses. They looked as real as they could. He could feel the movement on their faces as they moved, and their eyes, which gazed at the soldiers, looked real as well. But that man up there, he looked too unreal. Even his handsomeness didn't appear natural. He looked more like a character out of a wonderful painting, and the atmosphere he radiated was impossible as well. If Oliver wasn't surrounded by soldiers right now who shared the same reactions as him, he would have concluded already that he was in a dream. As his mind wandered with different thoughts, the man's eyes snapped open, a grin spreading across his face as he stretched and yawned loudly, before giving the soldiers a casual wave. "What's up, y'all?" It was the middle of the night, and a horse-drawn carriage sped down the lonely, broad path leading to Winterseed. On top of the carriage sat a gorgeous man with long white hair tied in a ponytail, seated in a lotus position, his eyes closed as he absorbed mana from the surroundings. Knock, knock. Suddenly, knocks came from within the carriage, causing DeAndre to open his eyes. With a signal from him, the two horses pulling the carriage halted immediately. He floated down from the roof and approached the door, opening it to find Alara standing there with her usual serious expression. "We're getting close to your village, pretty lady," DeAndre said with a smile. He is aware that the women still didn't fully trust him. "I know," Alara replied. "That's why I stopped you." "Huh, I thought you wanted to return to your village." "Don't tell me you've changed your mind so soon." "It's not that," Alara responded almost immediately, her serious expression crumbling into one of worry and pleading. "I need to ask you for a favor." DeAndre found her sudden change in demeanor strange, but signaled for her to continue. Alara began speaking, her voice and tone sincere as she made her request. After hearing her out, DeAndre smirked and nodded in agreement. "Rest assured, I'll do exactly as you ask. I won't deny it. You're a truly intriguing person, and I'd like to discover more about you." He smiled sweetly at her, but she only responded with a wry smile before retreating to bed. DeAndre locked the door, returned to the roof, and signaled the horses to continue on their way. "What's up, y'all?" Oliver and the soldiers watched in surprise as the strange man suddenly opened his eyes. He yawned, as if waking from a deep sleep, then casually waved at them as though they were old friends reunited after a long time apart. His friendly greeting left the soldiers exchanging puzzled looks before they quickly turned their focus back to him. "Who are you, and why are you in Winter Seed territory?" Oliver demanded, pointing his sword at him. "Me? I am your friendly neighborhood superhero, DeAndre Dragarath." DeAndre introduced himself, his introduction leaving everyone even more confused. DeAndre Dragarath? What a strange name, Oliver thought, his brow furrowing slightly. "State your intention for stepping into our territory," he quickly demanded, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized the stranger. "And what exactly is it that you have inside that big box you're sitting on?" "My intentions are nothing but pure, I assure you. As for the content of my carriage, I can only reveal it after speaking with your lord." DeAndre replied with a sweet smile playing on his face. Though DeAndre exuded an imposing presence, his words were entirely the opposite, friendly, with no hint of ill intent. What is he planning? Why does he want to see Lord Rowan before revealing what's in the box? Could it be some kind of weapon, and he's planning to ambush Lord Rowan? Oliver's mind raced with these thoughts as he continued to scrutinize DeAndre. As his thoughts wandered, considering every possibility, the galloping sound of a horse approaching reached his ears. He quickly turned around, greeted by the sight of Rowan riding toward them, a frown on his face. Rowan halted his horse beside Oliver, gave him a nod, and dismounted before using God's eyes to inspect DeAndre. Name: DeAndre Dragarath. Power: a rank. Occupation: merchant. Title: Harbinger of Prosperity. Special skill: trading SS-rank, uncopyable. Status: curious. Who is this guy? He's got an SS rank skill I can't even copy, a power rank high enough to crush my village with a flick of his finger, and a title. NPCs aren't supposed to have titles. Rowan's eyes narrowed as he studied DeAndre. Rowan wondered about the true identity of this person, why he held a title only players could possess, and why he was here in a small territory like his, even though his power and skill far outranks it. Naturally, someone with such high power rating wouldn't gain much even if he plunders the whole of Winterseed. So why was he here? Even with God's eyes, DeAndre remained a mystery to Rowan. He was like an open book written in an ancient and indecipherable language. Everything was visible, but understanding it was impossible. Nevertheless, Rowan decided not to antagonize this person, as it could bring more harm than good to his village. He also had a sudden urge to dig deep into this character and discover who he truly was. He also had one question: could he be a player who transmigrated just like me? As for DeAndre, when he saw Rowan arrive on horseback, he immediately recognized him as the lord of the territory, and a smile crept across his face. "A new customer," he exclaimed merrily in his heart as he observed Rowan. He watched as Rowan dismounted, noticing the strange look on his face as he assessed him. That's not the proper way to welcome a visitor, DeAndre thought. Maybe this one isn't friendly, he concluded, and proceeded to introduce himself. "You must be Lord Rowan of Winterseed. Your subject's name is DeAndre Dragarath. I have many things that could help your territory develop rapidly. You should welcome me." Rowan narrowed his eyes, his expression serious. "You claim to have things that could help my territory develop rapidly. What exactly are these things? And why should I trust a stranger who suddenly appears in my land?" DeAndre chuckled, clearly unfazed by Rowan's stern demeanor. "Oh, come on, my lord. You wound me with your suspicion. But I understand, it's not every day you meet someone as extraordinary as me. I have wares and knowledge that could turn your humble village into a thriving hub of prosperity." Oliver and the soldiers found DeAndre's words too impossible to believe. "Lord Rowan, we should not trust this person," they suggested. Rowan could have agreed with this suggestion, but he had already seen enough to understand that DeAndre's claims weren't a scam. However, despite this, Rowan did not trust him completely. DeAndre's identity remained a mystery, and his reasons for coming to the village were far from satisfying. Why would an SS-rank merchant choose to trade with a small FF-rank village when he could easily establish connections with powerful kingdoms and empires? Moreover, anyone who possessed a badass title like Harbinger of Prosperity was far from ordinary. Oliver, lower your weapons and let him in, Rowan commanded after further contemplation. In Winterseed Village, there exists a very large building used for welcoming visitors and holding important meetings. Nevertheless, the last time it was opened was during the last meeting Dragon Winterseed held with his strongest soldiers 3 days before leaving the village. The details of the last meeting remain unknown, and all the participants of the meeting have been slain by goblins and Glenwood soldiers. At this moment, Rowan, his captains, and DeAndre could be seen walking toward the entrance of the building, which stood alone, opposite the village square. It was still nighttime, and around 20 soldiers accompanied them, quickly forming a defensive formation around the building upon arrival. Rowan and DeAndre walked in front of the captains. Rowan opened the door, revealing the large hall within the building. With Rowan's night vision, he was able to observe the hall and noticed the wooden chairs arranged properly in a circle. He also saw the cobwebs and dust that had settled in the room, indicating it had been untouched for quite some time. The air inside was musty as well. No one has ever thought of cleaning this room since Dragon left, Rowan sighed. He was a bit frustrated, as this was the only place they could use in accepting DeAndre. His hut, while being the second biggest house in the village, is only as big as a medium-sized bedroom on Earth. He couldn't entertain anyone with that. While Rowan swam in his mental frustration, DeAndre observed the room as well and noticed everything instantly. He whispered a few strange words into the air, and suddenly, a magic formation appeared, glowing brightly and drawing the attention of everyone, including the soldiers guarding the premises. They all reacted the same, shocked and amazed. Magic! Rowan's eyes widened in shock as he saw this. He had used magic in games and watched a lot of movies featuring magic, but he had never seen anything so close and realistic. The feeling he experienced right now was akin to living out a dream in real life. Nevertheless, there was a bit of curiosity and greed within him. He activated God Eyes and entered the detailed stats where all of his skills would be displayed before him, and then he could copy them. However, after activating it, a frown appeared on his face as he observed the window floating in front of him. Skills: Trading SS, Light Magic B, Fire Magic A, Mana Breathing A, Voice of Prosperity A, Sweet Tongued. Ding error. You cannot copy skills from this character. Ding error. Seeing these messages made Rowan's heart skip a beat as he observed DeAndre. Who the hell is this guy? I can't copy any of his skills, not even the deer rank ones. Rowan exclaimed inwardly. This was the first time any of his skills had failed to activate on a target. According to the function of his copy skill, he could copy skills from anyone below SS rank. And DeAndre wasn't even S rank, so why couldn't he copy his skills? As Rowan pondered and wondered, the magic formation DeAndre had created began to manifest its purpose as a strong wind suddenly appeared, drifting inside and across the room. Under his control, the wind acted as a cleaner, wiping away all the dust and cobwebs in a matter of seconds. The captains behind Rowan watched all of this with their mouths wide open in shock. This was simply extraordinary. Throughout their lives, they had only heard that elemental magic existed, but had never seen any before. In fact, according to their forefathers, manifesting elemental magic could only mean one had been blessed by the heavens and accepted by the elements, making them one with them. The young soldiers who had left their positions to come watch were shocked beyond description as they observed with wide eyes and open mouths. As for DeAndre, he kept a smile on his face. After cleaning the room using wind magic, he made a ball of glowing crystal appear midair and used his wind magic to make it float into the room, letting it hover in the middle to provide lighting for the meeting. After setting everything in place, he turned to Rowan, who was standing beside him, and nodded at him as if to signal, "He's done." Rowan, still confused about DeAndre's identity and the situation with the system, could only nod in response. "I will get to know your true identity very soon," he swore to himself. He then signaled the guards to return to their position and the captains to come inside with him. The soldiers obeyed and did as he commanded, and the captains entered the room. After 5 minutes, everything settled down, and the 8 of them sat inside the room. The glowing crystals floated in the air, providing more than enough light. The doors were securely locked, ensuring the details of their meeting remained within the room. Rowan faced DeAndre, who sat opposite him with a slight frown on his face. "You expect me to believe you just felt like coming here? Prove it," Rowan demanded, his eyes narrowing. He knew DeAndre's answers were nothing but a smokescreen for his true intentions. Rowan could literally see with God's eyes that whenever DeAndre answered most of his questions, his status changed from cheerful to dishonest, indicating that his answers were lies. "How and why should I prove it to you, Mr. Rowan?" A merchant would venture into any territory he finds attractive and try to build up a successful business connection there. It is the norm of the business world, and I am sure you are smart enough to know that, DeAndre replied with a smile. Your captains find DeAndre suspicious. Your captain's trust with DeAndre has increased by 50%, current trust level, 30%. From the system notification, Rowan could tell that DeAndre's answers were smart enough to convince the captains, but he knew they were fake as usual. What is this guy hiding? He thought, but kept a straight outward expression. There's Glenwood Village nearby, and they're at least 3 times more prosperous than Winterseed. If you were really the skilled merchant you claim to be, wouldn't it make more sense to build connections there? Besides, my village barely has any purchasing power. So, what exactly do you expect us to pay for whatever you're offering? He asked. Your captain's trust with DeAndre has decreased by 80%, current trust level, minus 50%. DeAndre and Rowan went back and forth, debating, each of them trying to outsmart the other with every word they spoke. Their back and forth left the captains shocked and amazed. This was the first time they had seen their beloved lord battle someone verbally. He was able to contrast all the points DeAndre gave and use them for further interrogation. Meanwhile, DeAndre was astonished. Is this the same guy Alara described as young and naive? He wondered, recalling his conversation with Alara before arriving at the village. I've spoken and made deals with dukes, kings, and emperors, but none of them have ever made me question my own wit. Yet this guy, a mere village head of such a small place, is outsmarting me at every turn. Who is he really? A group of 15 soldiers riding on horseback could be seen in the middle of the night, moving along the path that leads from Glenwood to Winterseed. It was the darkest and calmest hours of the night, and only the sound of their horses galloping could be heard across a wide radius. Stannis was riding at the front, his eyes cold and reflecting the anger that boiled within him. That damn fatso thinks he can order me around as he pleases. Very soon, I'll change all that and make that bastard pay for all the humiliations, he muttered angrily. The soldiers riding beside him overheard his words and couldn't help but swallow hard. While they supported Stannis in his aim to overthrow Lord Fagin and become the new lord, they were aware that accomplishing this was almost impossible. Stannis would be going against the decree of the ancestors, which always bring deadly curses and bad luck. In the past, 5 soldiers, much like Stannis, had thought highly of themselves and schemed to take over the rulership of Glenwood from the lord of their time. Nevertheless, they all met dark ends after succeeding in their schemes. 2 died 2 years after from a deadly disease. 1 was mauled to death by a bear, and 2 were asterisked and killed by hobgoblins. Nevertheless, despite knowing all of this, none of the soldiers dared speak to Stannis. They feared that, In his current state of anger, he might cripple anyone who dared contradict him. Stannis continued riding, muttering to himself as they pressed forward. "Halt!" Stannis suddenly commanded after they reached a certain point. He brought his horse to a stop and instructed the others to do the same. He dismounted and tied the reins to a sturdy tree nearby. The night air was cool, and the surrounding forest seemed to close in, with darkness thick and almost palpable. Stannis glanced around at his men, his cold eyes scanning each of them as they dismounted and secured their horses to the nearby trees. "We go on foot from here," he said, his voice low and commanding. "We can't afford to draw any unwanted attention or suspicions from Winterseed before the war." The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances. Doubt flickered in their minds, but none dared to voice it. They had heard tales of the dangers lurking in the forests at night, wild beasts, goblins, and other monstrosities that ruled the night. Traveling on foot seemed like a gamble with death itself, but they were helpless and could only obey his command without reporting. Stannis, seeing their compliance, gave a curt nod. "Good. Stay close and keep your eyes sharp. We have a long way to go, and the night is unforgiving to the careless." With that, he turned and began to lead the way down the narrow, overgrown path that wound closer to Winterseed. The soldiers followed, their footsteps muffled by the thick layer of leaves and pine needles underfoot. After walking cautiously for about 2 hours, they finally spotted Winterseed village from afar. Sadly, the thick forest and bush ended there. Any further step they took would reveal their location to the soldiers guarding the border. Thus, they could not move any further and could only try to spy from that distance, which was almost impossible. Nevertheless, Stannis brought out a strange object from his pocket, which had a cylindrical shape with glass attached to both ends. If Rowan or anyone from Earth were here, they would recognize it as a spyglass, mostly used by pirates in the 18th century. Stannis squatted and proceeded to use the spyglass, which made the village appear 4 times closer. With the dim glow of the moonlight and magnification from the spyglass, he could see a group of more than 10 soldiers guarding the border. He could also see a few huts beyond the border. He tilted the spyglass in other directions in search of a clue, but there was no clue at all. "This is bad," Stannis muttered to himself. "To really confirm if those women have returned, I will have to enter the village, but that would be stupid, and it is almost impossible," he continued. He could have attacked right away and kicked the soldiers guarding the border, but it would only draw attention. He was confident about killing 10 soldiers, but what if 30 surrounded him at once? He would be gone for sure. At this point, he was stuck in a dead end with his mission. As he was about to give up and put away the spyglass, he noticed a group of soldiers walking toward another group guarding the border. After the new group arrived, the old group quickly left. Nevertheless, Stannis paid particular attention to one of them as he recognized him. He was the spy who had divulged information about Winterseed to Lord Fagin. "I have to get that bastard to tell me all he knows. He is my only chance to find out if those women have returned to the village," Stannis smirked. The other soldiers with him couldn't help but wonder what their captain was talking about. From their position, without a spyglass like Stannis's, they could only see figures moving around close to the border. As they wondered to themselves, Stannis suddenly put away his spyglass and brought out a small flute that the soldiers quickly recognized. It was a special and traditional gift handed to the best captains of the Glenwood army, passed down from generations. It was the identity of a captain, serving as a staff of authority to a lord. However, unlike the staff of authority, which only served as proof of identity and authority, the flute had numerous purposes. Ignoring the curious looks the young soldiers gave him, Stannis began to play the flute, a smooth tone drifting slowly into the surrounding area. Its tone was soft and almost inaudible even to the soldiers standing close to him. Nevertheless, magically, the sound drifted toward the Winterseed border and beyond. 3 soldiers stood gallantly at the Winterseed border, discussing DeAndre. "Are you for real?" one exclaimed, shock etched on his face. "Yes, Judus, I saw it with my own eyes." "He used magic," the other replied. "I was there as well." Even Lord Rowan and the captain were shocked beyond description. Another joined in. The one named Judus looked at the two with regret in his eyes, wishing he could go back in time and witness DeAndre use magic. But suddenly, "What is that sound?" one of the soldiers said, confusion on his face. He could hear a tone, like the whistling of the wind, but it came with a sweet, musical quality that bored deep into his soul. "I can hear it too. So smooth. It sounds like the sound of wind blowing and music at the same time," the other replied. A deep frown quickly formed on Judus's face as the sound reached his ears. "What are they doing here?" he muttered under his breath, his voice laced with panic, shock, and fear. The two soldiers with him turned, casting puzzled looks his way, having caught the distress in his whispered words. Judus quickly waved his hands dismissively. "Don't mind me. I was just recalling something," he said, forcing a casual tone. The soldiers, though still curious, returned their focus to their watch. "Shit, that's the signal Stannis told me and the captain about. It can only mean he's nearby, but why is he here so soon? Is there an army with him?" Judas's thoughts raced as he panicked. "The captain is with Lord Rowan and can't be disturbed, which means I have to deal with this myself, and immediately. Knowing Stannis, he might lose it and slaughter everyone just to get to me. Guys, you've been working hard since morning and you look really tired. Why don't you guys go to sleep? I should take your place and watch instead while you guys rest. Remember, tomorrow there will be a lot of work to do." After a few minutes of pondering, Judus went to his colleagues and said with a smile. The two of them looked at him strangely for a few minutes, as Judus wasn't the type of person who usually volunteers to help others. Nevertheless, they finally agreed and left since they were already feeling sluggish and sleepy. After they left, Judus let out a loud sigh of relief. He waited a few minutes before sneaking towards the forest area, running with all his might to make it there before anyone sees him. After running for a few minutes at his top speed, Judus finally arrived at the thick, bushy area and scanned his surroundings. "Where is he?" he muttered to himself as he searched for Stannis. "Over here," a thick voice sounded from behind him. It was so abruptly that Judus almost jumped in fear. Nevertheless, he quickly calmed down when he saw who it was, but then a serious and curious expression appeared on his face. "Why are you here at this time? This wasn't the date we agreed on," Judus complained. Stannis only scoffed at his complaint. "I am not here concerning the war, idiot. I am here for something else. Alara and the other women we took from your village killed 3 of my soldiers and escaped." "Huh?" Judus was dumbfounded. "Are you sure of this? How can those women, who don't know how to hurt a fly, kill your soldiers? That is impossible." Judus knew Alara and all the women who had been taken from the village by Glenwood. All of them were as polite and innocent as angels, so he found Stannis' report really strange. On the other hand, Stannis' expression turned cold as he heard the doubting questions. "Do you think I would leave the comfort of my village and travel for long hours through a deadly path just to come tell lies? Sorry for doubting you." Judus immediately apologized. "Have you found them?" He followed up with a question, though it was a foolish one that annoyed Stannis. He clenched his fist and punched Judus in the face. The punch came with so much force that it sent Judus staggering 2 steps backward. He clenched his face with his hands and looked at Stannis with a pained expression. "What did I do? I only asked a question. Can't you answer with your mouth, or is it the tradition of Glenwood to answer with their fists instead of words?" he retorted. Hiding inside the bush, the soldiers who had come with Stannis couldn't help but shake their heads in pity after hearing Judus' retort against their captain. "Rest in peace, brother," they muttered at the same time. Before Judus realized his situation, it was already too late. Stannis had already landed another punch on his face and swept his feet off the ground, causing him to fall back. He didn't stop there and began kicking him in the balls. Judus cried out for help and pleaded for 2 minutes before Stannis finally let him be, heaving a sigh to calm his raging heart. "Tell me, have those bitches returned to the village? Tell me everything I need to know, or I will chop off those bean-sized balls you have," Stannis demanded. Judus was in pain, but he couldn't afford to get more, so he immediately answered, telling him that the women hadn't returned to the village. He also told him about DeAndre. Unfortunately, his story about DeAndre seemed too impossible to be true, and Stannis kicked him the balls again for lying. "I am not lying. I am telling the truth," Juduz pleaded, clenching his crotch with tears dripping from his eyes. After all those kicks, he believed he would never be able to enjoy life again. "Who are you kidding? I have been to more places than you, and I have never seen anyone use magic, and you claim to have seen one? Liar, you don't deserve those balls anymore," Stannis berated. Inside the bush, the soldiers grabbed their crotches with both hands as if defending them from an invisible enemy. They all had pale expressions as they watched Juduz lose his balls gradually. Juduz continued trying to make Stannis believe him, but Stannis paid no attention as he unleashed all the anger he has been holding in on Juduz. Each time Juduz tried to speak more, he would be kick him in the balls. It was as though he had traveled down from Glenwood just to destroy Juduz's balls. "I will be back tomorrow night. Make sure to come here and meet me," Stannis said with a scoff before turning his back and disappearing into the bush. He signaled his soldiers, and they left with him. Juduz remained on the ground, clutching his destroyed lower half. Tears dripped down his eyes continuously as the pain intensified every second. After crying his heart out for a few hours, Juduz struggled up and began making his way back to the village. Fortunately, no one was at the border to see him approaching. When he reached the border, he found a place to sit and stared at the moon with a vengeful expression on his face, swearing to himself, "I will kill you myself, Stannis." Meanwhile, at Glenwood Prison, Lyanna sat on the rough ground inside a dark cell, her hands and legs bound by chains to the walls. A stinking smell drifted around the cell continuously, indicating its bad state. The stench was a mix of rotten food, decaying animal remains, and other rubbish that made it unhealthy to live in. Nevertheless, Lyanna had no choice but to stay there. She couldn't free herself, and even if she could, she would be met by a large number of prison guards who would make her life hell without killing her. She sat there, staring into the darkness with tired, almost lifeless eyes. It had been more than 24 hours since she was locked in this place, and more than 72 hours since she had anything to eat. At this point, she had given up on life. As long as Alara and the others make it to Winterseed and inform Lord Rowan about the plot of these evil people, I will be able to rest in peace after I die, she resolved. She recalled her youthful days back in Winterseed, remembering the beautiful scenes that reminded her of how wonderful life had been before Dragon disappeared and their village fell into the hands of Glenwood. Back then, life was blissful, with plenty of food for everyone, and the villagers always had smiles on their faces. As her mind reminisced about the good old days, a creaking sound came from the door, causing her to dart her eyes in its direction with a dreadful expression on her face. Lyanna saw two figures at the door, one holding a torch and dressed in the uniform of the prison guards, the other a middle-aged man whom she immediately recognized as one of Lord Fagin's advisors. The prison guard stood outside, while the middle-aged man walked inside. After he walked in, the guard locked the door from the outside. Seeing this, Lyanna's eyes widened, and she began desperately trying to free herself from the chains, even though she knew it was impossible. "Stay away from me," she cried out, her fear evident in her voice. She was aware of the excessive lust the men of Glenwood had for her and the other Winterseed women, and how they saw them as nothing but items to be claimed at any time by anyone. "I'm not here to hurt you, young lady," the man said, his words contradicting her fears. But the darkness in the cell made it hard to see his face and expression. "Stay away," Lyanna retorted again, looking at his shadowy figure in the darkness. She heard him let out a disappointed sigh. She also noticed his unclear silhouette reaching for something, which made her eyes widen and increased her efforts to free herself. Lyanna struggled even harder to free herself from the chains binding her as her eyes kept a cautious watch on the figure standing in front of her in the dark cell. "Stay away," she cried continuously, terrified of the possibilities that awaits her. She was trapped, and there was no Alara to help her now. She also had no freedom of her own, no chance to escape whatever fate awaited her. Stop stressing yourself, young one. I am really not here to hurt you, the middle-aged man said as he tossed something onto her lap. Here, something to eat. Liara ceased her struggles and stared at the silhouette, confused and wary. He's giving me food to eat? Why? She asked herself, but soon her gaze tightened once again as mistrust took hold of her thoughts. He want me to have enough energy for the evil he is going to do to me. The middle-aged man observed Liara in the dark and saw that she wasn't going to touch the food he had given her. My name is Rowan. He introduced himself softly, trying to bridge the gap between them. Young lady, do not consider me the same as my people. I can't even abhor such evil thoughts against someone younger than my own daughter. It's disgusting. I'm not here to interrogate you for Lord Fagin or harm you in any way. I only want to help, he continued, making sure to convey his true intentions. Liara listened to him, and from his tone, she could tell he was sincere, but she still couldn't trust him. She couldn't trust any man from Glenwood. It was a defensive mechanism that her mind had developed after all she had seen, and she would rather die than let any of them defile her. You all say the same thing. You claim to be better and different from each other, but you show your true side the moment you get the chance you've been craving, she responded in a low and weak voice, almost sounding like a whisper. I understand you, but think about your condition and your sisters. Do you think they would want to come back to find their sister dead? Do you know how much pain it would bring them? You better eat now that you have the chance. Liara quickly rethought his words and couldn't help but imagine the pain one would feel from losing loved ones. But at the same time, she became even more confused. Aren't you that fat bastard's advisor? Why are you helping me, and why do you believe my sisters would return? Liara asked, her voice tinged with skepticism and suspicion. She heard Rowan sigh before replying. Glenwood is on the brink of collapse, and I want no part in its downfall. I'm helping you because, in times like these, siding with the righteous is the only way to survive because they are prone to succeed more. About your sisters, I know it might be hard to believe, but I actually saw them leaving the village that day, and you playing the role of distracting the soldiers at the gate by luring them away. I know you killed those 3 young soldiers. The last part of his statement uncovered a memory Liara had been fighting to forget. You knew, she reacted, her voice filled with guilt, sadness, frustration, and many other traumatizing emotions. She couldn't believe her dark secret wasn't actually a secret. What if this man decides to report me? She thought as her heartbeat intensified. Then I would surely be tortured and killed. Those young men were clouded with lust and would have done a lot of evil things to you if you hadn't killed them. I believe you were only saving yourself and nothing else. You shouldn't feel guilty about that. Ren responded with a sigh and continued to convince her to eat. Liara refused. She didn't believe him at all. She suspected him for a lot of things, showing kindness to have his way, adding aphrodisiac to her food to make it easier for him. She accused him of a lot of things, each one more desperate than the last. The more he heard her malnourished and pained voice accusing him of those intentions, the sadder he became. Ren had daughters older than Liara, and he wouldn't even dare to imagine them going through half the torment Liara had had to endure. After more than half an hour of convincing her, she finally agreed to eat what he had given her, but only on the condition that he leave the cell. Having no choice, Ren bade her farewell and proceeded to leave. He knocked on the door, and the guards quickly arrived to open it. Liara watched him leave before turning to look at the bread on her lap. She stared at the bread for a few seconds before picking it up with her chained hands to eat, satisfying her raging belly while her bleeding heart kept wishing for her village to be okay. In Winterseed, a few hours had passed since Rowan and DeAndre began their meeting. A lot had been discussed during this period, but most of it was just heated back-and-forth exchanges between Rowan and DeAndre. Rowan's ability to use DeAndre's vocal strategies against him made DeAndre even more appalled. Alara was very wrong. This guy doesn't look or show any feature of a dumb and naive lord as she described him to be. With this much knowledge and skill, he could even handle Blackstone Empire more effectively than its current emperor. That guy is nothing but a cuckolded prick, thought DeAndre. He turned to look at the 7 captains, whose eyes were focused on him. Sadly, even as wise as he is, he can't tell that one of his captains is feeding juicy information to his enemies. He shook his head and turned to look at Rowan with a smile. Lord Rowan, why don't you send your captains out of the room for a few minutes? I have something really important and secret to show you, and only you can see it, DeAndre let out. Almost immediately, Bryce, Roland, and Oliver stood up and glared at him. We can't leave our lord with you, they said in unison, their hands on their swords, ready to engage at any time. Guys, I can handle this. Rowan waved his hands, and only then did they retract their weapons. But Lord Rowan, why do you want to stay alone with him? He is not trustworthy enough. I can't leave you alone with him. Bryce let out with a stern look on his face. The other captains agreed and joined him in a futile attempt to talk Rowan out of it. I'm strong enough to defend myself if anything should happen, Rowan claimed, even though he knew this statement was a straight lie. You guys shouldn't worry about me. I'm sure you wouldn't waste time, right? He directed his last question at DeAndre. Absolutely. Just a few minutes, DeAndre replied immediately. The captains hesitated, exchanging wary glances before reluctantly leaving the room. As the heavy door closed, the room fell into an uneasy silence, leaving Rowan and DeAndre alone. The glowing crystal ball floated peacefully, and the breeze blew calmly in the room as the two figures faced each other. So, you're transmigrated too, aren't you? A deafening silence sprawled across the room as DeAndre and Rowan observed each other with smiles and frowns on their faces respectively. After a few seconds passed, DeAndre finally smiled and let out, So, you're a transmigrator too, aren't you? The room descended into more intense silence after his question. Rowan's eyes furrowed as he couldn't believe what he had just heard. I think I misheard. What did you say just now? He queried, his voice laced with disbelief. Maybe you haven't heard about transmigration before, so let me explain in simple terms. You were suddenly transported to this world while playing Emperor's Domain. Am I wrong? DeAndre asked, raising an eyebrow. Rowan's expression crumbled at once. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Another transmigrate? How is that possible? Rowan had only been in this world for less than a week and had already concluded in his mind that he was the only one. But now there was another? It was really confusing, though it all made sense now. Rowan wasn't able to copy DeAndre's skills in the beginning with copy, and DeAndre also has a title which was strained for the real characters of this world to possess. But how did he know that I'm also a transmigrator? Even with my god eyes, I couldn't tell he was one. Rowan wondered, and he didn't hesitate to ask. How did you know? DeAndre laughed out loud after hearing his question. It took me some time to confirm it with my system, to be honest. But before that, you raised my suspicions in many ways. When you came to the border, the way you observed me was way too unnatural, and I started to suspect if you were a weird one or someone who has inspecting skills. DeAndre went on giving points of how he became suspicious. He mentioned how Rowan was always twisting his words in order to make him divulge his own identity, and how Rowan's experience and knowledge about kingdom building was too much for someone who is said to have just recovered from a 6-year-long coma and doesn't possess knowledge of how to handle his own village. I'll be honest, the way you argued baffled me. It made me feel less of myself thinking I was being outsmarted by an SSS-rank village lord, but it all made sense now, DeAndre concluded with a smile. Rowan couldn't help but look at him at this moment with a deadpan expression. It turned out both of them were playing the mind game with one another all along. One was trying to decipher the other's true identity, while the other was fighting hard to see why he suddenly became inferior. Now that you know who I truly am, and I know your true identity, Can you cut the bullshit and cut straight to the actual reason you came to my village? Rowan asked without wasting time. He was amazed that there was another transmigrator like himself, but he couldn't let that distract him from keeping his village safe. Come on, Rowan. Why are you still acting distant and cold despite knowing we are from the same world? If it were the others, they would run and hug me and cry their heart out about how they felt so lonely and missed Earth and plead for my help. There are others? Rowan asked with shock. It was already a big surprise that there was one transmigrator, but the fact that there are others made him really confused. Of course, and I have met with 3 of them already. You are the 4th one. I believe there are more than 1,000 players in this world who are transmigrated like us. My main goal aside from completing my mission is to get to meet all of them and build a strong connection with them. DeAndre responded almost immediately. He told Rowan almost everything he knew and even went as far to tell him the different people he met, their profession, and even told him he made out with one of them as though he was speaking to his long-lost brother. Rowan didn't understand why someone would divulge so much information about themselves without hiding anything. It was just too unwise. The only saving point DeAndre has is that he is already powerful enough to defend himself from most people. On the other hand, while DeAndre's information was too excessive and personal, Rowan was able to get more details about the world and the other transmigrators. I got along with the other 3 just fine, and we made a lot of progress. And I see no reason why we shouldn't build a good relationship as well. If not as friends, then as business partners, DeAndre let out. Rowan only nodded slightly as he found the statement true and logical, but it didn't take him from his main concern. You still haven't told me why you came to my village, he said. DeAndre could only let out a loud sigh. I found 5 of your villagers on my way through the forest and brought them back with me. He finally told Rowan the real reason he was here. Dude, can you stop the bullshit and tell the truth? No woman has left the village in a long time, and you claim to have 5 of them in your possession, Rowan retorted, frustrated by the constant lies. Dishonesty is a passive skill all businessmen possess, but using it too much is really annoying. For all Rowan knew, no woman had left the village, and no one had traveled past the north border in a long time due to the dangers lurking along that path. It was almost as intense as the southern forest, but with more versatile monsters than goblins and Raytax. This time, DeAndre didn't bother to defend himself with words, as he already knew Rowan wouldn't buy any of it. Inventory, he called out. His inventory appeared before him. If any of the captains were there, they would think he was crazy, but Rowan wasn't fazed, as he already knew DeAndre possessed a system. Sadly, he couldn't see his inventory. DeAndre brought out a golden slip from his inventory and closed it. He held the golden slip and tore it, causing a small vortex to appear in front of him. The small vortex quickly transformed into a portal, and from the portal, 5 women walked out. The women had been briefed beforehand about the portal, so none of them were fazed by its extraordinary appearance. Alara was the first to walk through the portal, her eyes immediately darting toward Rowan as she entered the room. Her gaze was cold, and Rowan felt the chill instantly. The other women followed, their eyes fixed on Rowan as well. Some of them frowned, while others seemed genuinely surprised at how much Rowan had grown. With the help of the floating crystal ball, Rowan was able to observe their faces and recognize them from the memories of the original Rowan of this world. He also noted their expressions, which were far from friendly. There was unmistakable hatred and disappointment in their eyes, and the system even confirmed it. Your follower, Alara, is pissed at you. 3 of your followers feel disgusted by your calmness. 2 of your followers are confused about what to feel. As Rowan focused more on the women, a memory fragment was triggered in his mind. In the memories, he saw Alara and the other women being dragged away by Glenwood soldiers. At the same time, their stats were revealed to him. Name, Alara. Occupation, farmer. Special skill, farming F. Status, pissed. Name, Sansa. Occupation, cook. Special skill, master of ingredients, F. Status, disgusted. As he studied their stats, Rowan noticed that 3 of them were farmers, while the other 2 were cooks. Given the village's lack of development, tailoring, cooking, and farming were the main occupations for women, while 70% of the men were farmers. As he mentally noted this, he couldn't help but be concerned about the expressions on their faces, which clearly displayed hate and disgust toward him. What did I do to deserve such hatred from these women? I can't recall anything in my memories where I offended them. Rowan wondered as he looked at their faces. Alara, I have fulfilled my promise, DeAndre said to Alara. Alara only nodded in response, then returned her sharp gaze to Rowan. Seeing her sharp gaze, DeAndre couldn't help but pity Rowan. Lord Rowan, did you really agree to become friends with Glenwood after all they have done to our people? Alara couldn't hold back her emotions any longer and spoke up. Rowan looked at her with a dumbfounded expression. He was about to reply when she cut him off, continuing to berate him. Why would you make such a decision despite all they have done to us? You were supposed to take after your father and become a notable ruler who wouldn't cower in the presence of strong enemies. Do you have any idea what those people have done to us? They made us nothing but slaves to fulfill their wishes, making our lives miserable, and yet you decided to accept their vassal decree. Alara went all out, speaking her mind on the issue. The other women joined in as well, revealing their disgust toward his decision. Rowan listened to them with a deadpan expression. He wanted to tell them that their perception of him was just a misunderstanding, but seeing how angry they were, he thought it better to hear them out. As they continued ranting about Glenwood, Rowan picked up bits of useful information they dropped. As he was gathering the information, suddenly a challenge was triggered. A minor challenge has been triggered. Challenge: improve relationship with the returnees. Details: 5 of your followers' favorability has dropped to hatred, minus 80% favorability. You must raise their favorability to surpass a friendly level, 80%, to earn rewards. Reward: 500 evolution points. Deadline: 3 hours. Note: favorability updates will be reflected regularly until the quest is completed or the deadline is reached. Rowan didn't pay much attention to the challenge, as he already planned to improve his relationship with them. And to do that, he just needed a few minutes. Calm down, he said with a light sigh. Following his words, the women stopped talking, their chests heaving with visible anger as they looked at him. You didn't even give your beloved lord a chance to welcome you back from that damn place. So now that I have your attention, welcome back, he smiled at them. Your followers look at you with dumbfounded expressions. Your followers wonder if their lord is sane. Minus 5% favorability. Favorability has dropped to 85%. As expected, they were all shocked, giving him puzzled expressions. Even DeAndre couldn't help but wonder what sort of plan Rowan was scheming to handle the situation. He already knew that Rowan wasn't a dumb lord who couldn't handle situation, so he was really interested on how he was going to solve this issue. This is a serious matter, Lord Rowan, Alara said, her voice wavering slightly. We need answers, not welcomes. Answers to what questions exactly? Since you returned, you've been speaking non-stop, and you've asked more than 10 questions, so be specific about which one you need answers to. Rowan responded almost immediately. Minus 3 favorability. Minus 2% favorability. Favorability has dropped to 80%. Did you really agree to the vassal decree with Glenwood? One of the women asked. Do you really think I'm so naive as to agree to such a relationship? Rowan asked. That's exactly what they think of you, bro, DeAndre thought to himself, looking at Rowan with an amused expression. As for the women, they were shocked. But the soldiers said you agreed to the decree and even intended to invite their lord to our territory for a feast? Alara said, shocked. She clearly recalled the conversation between Wagga and Lord Fagin that day. "Those were all lies I told that day to prevent the soldiers from taking more of our women," Rowan replied. "Your followers are shocked by your unexpected schemes. Your followers feel bad for praying that you get eaten by bears. Plus 25% favorability. Plus 20% favorability. Plus 15% favorability. Plus 15 favorability. Plus 5 favorability. Favorability has improved to 0% neutral." The women were all smiles after hearing his response. "This is a great relief, Lord Rowan," one of them sighed, placing her hand on her chest. "We thought you had given up on our people. We're glad that wasn't the case." One by one, the women smiled happily, but Alara kept the same expression on her face, refusing to break her frown as she still wasn't fully convinced. "What were your plans for us, Lord Rowan?" she asked. "This one is going to be a tough nut to crack." "She doesn't look friendly at all," Rowan sighed as he prepared his answers. He started by telling them how he had only recovered from his illness less than a week ago. Then he went on to inform them of how he had been worried sick about them, how he worked hard to train the soldiers, and how they had been preparing to storm Glenwood and free them. He even went so far as to lie about how he didn't get any sleep and skipped all his meals just to ensure their safe return. His story was so emotional that some of the women began wiping their tears with their shirts, their eyes red with remorse and regret. They regretted not believing in him sooner and laying all sorts of diabolical curses on him. Even Alara, who was emotionally strong, became weak in the face of such a wonderfully crafted story. Her eyes turned red, and she regretted hating him. Plus 70% favorability. Favorability has improved to 70%. Seeing their reactions and their current favorability toward him, Rowan smirked and decided to drop the bomb that would solve it all. He made his expression as sad as it could be, clenched his fists, and his eyes turned red with revenge and other emotions. He stood up from his seat and declared in a firm voice, "They have wronged our village by committing such evil against you, and we will make them pay with their blood. I personally shall bring that lore to you 5 to do as you see fit, so he will realize that messing with our beautiful ladies is something he should never have considered." The more Rowan spoke, the more emotional the ladies got, and the more the tension in the room increased. Alara and the ladies' eyes dripped with tears of different emotions ranging from sadness to regret, with a little hint of joy and pride. 2 of them got so emotional that they even knelt on the ground to cry their hearts out. DeAndre watched the scene unfold in front of him and couldn't help but wonder about the kind of magic Rowan possessed to be able to elicit such strong emotions from the ladies. Meanwhile, Rowan remained standing with a crafty smile on his face, watching their favorability towards him grow by the seconds. Favorability plus 5. Favorability plus 5. Favorability plus 10. Ding. Challenge completed. Eurydice's favorability of you has surpassed the friendly level. Reward has been sent. Ding. 100x rewards activated. 50,000 evolution points have been added. The amount of evolution points he received made him smile even more. Although it wasn't much, receiving rewards for something he would have done on his own was still a good thing. The glowing crystal floated in the room, highlighting the emotional faces of the women, especially Alara, whose eyes were fixed on Rowan, tears dripping down. Rowan stretched his hands out with a calm smile on his face, and the women immediately rushed to hug him. Alara was the first to approach him, and she hugged him tightly while crying her heart out. "Be at peace, beautiful women of Winter Seed. Your beloved lord is back and will take the village back to the peaceful paradise you once knew," Rowan declared as he embraced the women. His eyes darted towards DeAndre, who sat and watched with a cringed expression on his face after hearing Rowan's emotional speech. "This bastard," Rowan scoffed inwardly. The ladies cried in his embrace for more than 3 minutes before finally letting go of him. "Please take a seat, ladies. We have a lot to discuss," Rowan said to them. The 5 of them sat down on the free chairs in the room and stared at Rowan. The past hatred and anger on their faces were gone, now replaced with respectful and interested expressions. DeAndre also looked at Rowan with an interested expression, ready to hear what he had to say. Rowan cleared his throat and spoke with a smile. Once again, welcome back to Winterseed. He began, looking at the ladies who smiled and nodded in response. When you ladies complained earlier, you mentioned a lot of concerning words like Glenwood coming to attack, one of your sisters getting left behind, and others. I would like you to go deeper into those topics, he prompted. His words were met with an immediate response from the women. Lord Rowan, we have to prepare for war in 2 days, Alara revealed, her expression turning serious in an instant. War? Why exactly? The way I acted in front of the soldiers didn't show any form of confrontation, Rowan inquired, wanting to know more. Alara quickly explained all she had heard, starting by informing him about a spy from Winterseed who always released useful information to Glenwood. She then went on to talk about the last meeting between the spy and the Lord of Glenwood, which resulted in him preparing to take over Winterseed. Rowan wasn't that shocked about the first part, as he already knew about it. As for the last part, he wondered what information the Lord of Glenwood might have received to make him want to kill him so badly and take over his village. This information will be the core of our battle strategy. I'm glad you were smart enough to gather such vital intel. You should be proud of yourselves, Rowan complimented, causing the ladies to smile blissfully. But I wonder, what would you have done with this information if I hadn't cleared up the misunderstanding? He asked. Alara was the one to answer. Nothing. We would have tried our best to talk you out of it. Rowan nodded and continued. About that spy you talked about? Can you recognize him if you see him? I am sorry, my lord, but I wouldn't be able to recognize his face as I never got to see him. Lord Fagin always sent us out each time the spy arrives. However, I know that he is one of the new captains, and I can also recognize his voice, Alara replied. One of the new captains? Rowan's eyes narrowed slightly. Who among the 6 captains could this person be, and why is that person trying to betray his own village, he wondered. Among the captains, Rowan was very close with Roland and knew Bryce and Oliver a bit. As for the other captains, he had only communicated with them during training and hadn't been able to speak more with them to understand their character. Considering that Rowan had only been in this world for less than a week, it was pretty understandable why he didn't know his captains that well. She knows his voice. We will be able to fish him out very soon, he concluded and replied to Alara without wasting time. That's great, Alara. With your help, we'll be able to catch him before he leaks more information to Glenwood. I'm happy I was able to help, but I have one request to make. It's about Liera, the one who sacrificed her safety to grant us a safe escape. Alara's voice became low and moody as she spoke. She told Rowan about Liera and what Glenwood would do to her after finding out she aided their escape. She even mentioned how they had been trying to defile her and how she was always there to protect her. The other women joined in as well, emphasizing how lustful the men were and how they feared for Liera's safety. As Rowan and DeAndre heard the details of the matter, ugly expressions appeared on their faces and anger boiled in their hearts. Though DeAndre wasn't a part of Winterseed, he made up his mind to aid Rowan in exacting revenge on those people. Rowan discussed more with the ladies and got to gather as much information as he wanted from them. He learned about the number of soldiers under Glenwood, their current plan to attack his kingdom, the strength of their soldiers, and others. Each detail sharpened not only Rowan's understanding of the enemy's capabilities, but also stirred a complex brew of emotions within him. Concern for his people, a strategic resolve to protect them, and an underlying fear of what failure might bring to them. With this much information, Rowan crafted a new battle plan in his mind. He mapped out possible defensive positions and escape routes, imagining each scenario that could unfold. The discussion lasted for more than 1 hour. At this moment, it was already a few minutes past midnight as daylight drew closer. At this point, the ladies were already getting dizzy and wanted to rest. Sadly, Rowan couldn't send them to rest as he doesn't have any place for them to stay. And even if he did, he would not be able to send them away as it would lead to confusion among the soldiers outside who didn't see them enter the room. Also, if the betrayer in their midst sees them, he might run away to inform Glenwood. Rowan's mind raced as he considered his limited options. The safety of the village hinged on maintaining the secrecy of this meeting. Not wanting to take such a risk, Rowan asked DeAndre to let them stay in his carriage for the night, and then explained why he said so to them. The ladies understood his intention and agreed without further ado, but it wasn't the same for DeAndre. "I will help you, but you have to agree to do business with me," DeAndre requested. "Deal." Rowan agreed without wasting time. DeAndre smiled profusely, and then he brought out another golden slip from his inventory and tore it. Just like before, a small wisp appeared in the room, swirling speedily before turning into a portal. "Good night, Lord Rowan." Alara and the ladies bade Rowan farewell as they walked into the portal. "Have a nice rest, ladies." Rowan smiled in response. The women entered the portal, and it disappeared immediately. Now only Rowan and DeAndre were left in the room once again. Meanwhile, outside, the captain stood alongside the soldiers guarding the meeting hall with frowns on their faces. "It was really unwise of us to leave Lord Rowan with that man," Oliver let out with a deep frown on his face. "Yes, that man is untrustworthy. Who knows what he might do to Lord Rowan now that he is alone with him?" Another captain added. The other two captains refuted as well. They regretted leaving Rowan. "It was the command of Lord Rowan. Were you going to disobey his orders?" Roland asked them with a frown. His question caused the other four to go silent for a minute before Oliver finally replied. "Our Lord is still very young and inexperienced. Sometimes we have to do the opposite of his commands to prevent him from making a grave mistake." "Our Lord is inexperienced?" Roland asked with raised eyebrow. "Are you saying the same Lord who brought a lot of positive developments in the village in less than 1 week is inexperienced? The same man who is able to learn sword skills just by watching and is able to pass that skill to others is inexperienced?" The more Roland questioned, the more short for words Oliver became, and he quickly regretted making those statements. "Inexperienced or not, it doesn't change the fact that he is still very young," he commented, trying to remove the shame for losing the previous argument. Nevertheless, this only added to his embarrassment, as not only Roland, but the other captains disagreed with his comment. Fine, you guys are right." He waved his hands and ended the argument, seeing that there was no chance of him winning. Roland and the others relaxed as well. Roland turned to look at the meeting hall. He could still see the light from the glowing crystal ball that DeAndre had summoned earlier. He wondered what sort of discussion they were having in there, but at the same time, he tried not to bother himself about it. In the history of Winterseed, those who dared to sneak closer to the meeting hall to hear what's being discussed always end up cursed with deadly diseases that claim their life months after. Roland wasn't trying to make the same mistake as those people. "Excuse me, you guys. I have something I want to take care of. I will be back soon." Oliver excused himself. The other captains only nodded at him and returned to watching the area. Without wasting time, Oliver left, walking towards the northern border. Roland watched as Oliver disappeared into the darkness, wondering what he was going to do, but his thoughts didn't linger on him for too long. He shifted his gaze back to the meeting hall. The light from the glowing crystal remained, casting faint shadows on the ground. Inside the hall, Rowan remained seated, his mind racing as he processed all the information he'd gathered. The weight of Glenwood's plans to attack kept lingering in his mind, and he knew he had to act fast. Turning to DeAndre, he asked, "You mentioned you could help my territory in many ways? Now is the time. What can you do to help?" "A lot," DeAndre replied. "I am a merchant. I sell everything you desire as long as you give me something of the same value in exchange," he continued, explaining his class to Rowan. "Everything I desire?" Rowan asked, a little bit confused. If what DeAndre said was genuine, then he would be an important asset to grow his territory. "Yes, I can get you whatever you want, but you'll have to pay with something of equal value. And just so you know, my class has a restriction that doesn't allow me to give out anything for free, even to friends," DeAndre explained with a smile. Rowan nodded his head and quickly ran through all the things he wanted in his head. "I want weapons, skill books, food items, blueprints, food pills, and monsters cores. Can you get me all of these, and what do I have to give in return? Remember, my territory doesn't possess any sort of purchasing power. Exchanges can be done with other things of value. It doesn't have to be coins and money slips." DeAndre quickly removed the doubt that Rowan had about the process. Since you're a transmigrator like myself, then you should have evolution points, am I wrong? He asked. Hearing that, a smile crept on Rowan's face. If evolution points can be used as a purchasing power, then his purchasing power should be really powerful considering that he has millions of evolution points currently in his possession due to 100x rewards that has been multiplying his evolution points. Of course, I have evolution points, he quickly responded with a smile. Before the mention of evolution points, Rowan was lost in thoughts thinking about what he could exchange to get his hands on what he wanted. But now that it was mentioned, Rowan became really excited. On the other hand, DeAndre also got really excited as he would get to do business with yet another transmigrator. I wonder what impressive rewards I would get for getting another transmigrator customer, he wondered. As long as you have evolution points, we could do business, DeAndre replied. He quickly recalled that Rowan was only the village head of a FF-rank village, which means he shouldn't have enough evolution points to get what he wanted. So he quickly added, with evolution points as purchase power, you can obtain items of up to 1 million evolution points for credit with a 10% interest per month. The system will keep deducting from your balance each time you earn until you pay off. Rowan understood why DeAndre added the last part, and a smirk appeared on his face. That's great, then. Now let's get to business. I said I want weapons, skill books, blueprints, food pills, and monster cores. Which one of these do you really have? He asked. All of them, DeAndre replied, his face wearing a smug expression. But it all boils down to how much you can purchase. Monster cores and blueprints are really expensive compared to the others you mentioned, he continued. Anyway, enough talk. Let us start our trade. He smiled, then muttered something to himself. Following his mutter, a holographic window appeared in front of Rowan. Rowan was really shocked when a large holographic window appeared in front of him. His shock intensified when he saw what was on the holographic window. It was similar to his inventory in the fact that it had slots with items in them. However, unlike his inventory, which only had 10 slots, this one had more than 100 slots, and under each slot were the prices of the items. It was almost like the shopping websites on Earth. What the heck? Rowan couldn't help but voice out his surprise. Seeing his reaction, DeAndre smirked and took the opportunity to boast. That is one of my stores, and this one is specifically for FF-rank territories. There are other stores for each territory rank, so you could just imagine how many I have. The last transmigrator I did business with had a rank D territory, and even he couldn't afford everything on the FF-rank territory list, he added, his voice growing even more arrogant, revealing his pride. This is amazing, Rowan commented, ignoring all the arrogant remarks. His eyes focused on the window in front of him. Weapons. Common grade saber, 600 E.P. Common grade short sword, 500 E.P. Common grade sword, 700 E.P. Common grade shield, 800 E.P. Common grade leather armor, full, 1000 E.P. Weapons. In the list of weapons, there were only common grade ones and nothing more in terms of quality. However, the number of weapons listed were over 10 in numbers, which made Rowan even more amazed. Luckily, he was able to interact with the window and could view the stats of the weapons. After studying the stats, he discovered that all the weapons gave a 50% boost in attack power, which was 5 times the boost of a basic greatsword. As for the defensive weapons like the shield and armors, they gave a 50% boost in defense. Impressive weapons, right? DeAndre remarked from the sideline. Indeed, Rowan nodded without even looking at him. After observing the weapons, he went on to explore the monster core and food pill sections. Just like the weapons, the food pills were also common grades and could prevent hunger for 72 hours. As for the monster cores, they were all F-rank and not much else. Can't you give me something more than these? The F-rank monster cores are not motivating at all, Rowan complained as he moved on to the blueprint shop. Sadly, I can't because of restrictions. The highest grades I can offer to FF-rank territories are F-rank and common grade items. I can come back again when you are done evolving your territory to F-rank. Then the restriction would reduce, and you will be able to purchase items up to D and C rank, DeAndre replied. However, in his mind, he thought, I am not even sure you will be able to purchase more than 100 items from the available ones. and you are asking for higher grade ones? Do you really think you can afford them? Rowan could only sigh. He really needed high-quality weapons, but knew it would be impossible. In fact, being able to get enough common-grade weapons and armor for his soldiers was already more than enough, considering his village lacked everything. If it wasn't for fate leading DeAndre to the women, he would never have gotten his hands on this many weapons. I should explore the blueprint section and skills section before finalizing my purchase, Rowan thought to himself as he moved his gaze back to the window. DeAndre observed Rowan with a slight frown, wondering why he was entering the most expensive section. Blueprint. Simple weapon crafting blueprint, 100,000 EP. Simple sewing machine blueprint, 200,000 EP. Simple windmill blueprint, 300,000 EP. Blueprint. Upon seeing the number of blueprints, Rowan couldn't help but frown and turn to DeAndre. You have only 3 blueprints? He inquired. DeAndre was clearly confused, his usually smiling face turning to one of extreme confusion as he looked at Rowan. Did you take a look at the price? He asked. Of course I did. They're not that expensive. I just need more blueprints, Rowan replied. They're not that expensive? DeAndre's expression crumbled. They're not that expensive considering that the price matches their usefulness, Rowan gave a straightforward answer. Oh, that is good. DeAndre sighed internally. I thought he would say they aren't expensive because he has enough money to pay. DeAndre explained to Rowan that the blueprints were too advanced for SSS-rank territories to handle, which was why there were only a few simple blueprints available. Even these, he noted, were quite advanced for such a low-level territory. Rowan could only sigh. The more he realized that he was restricted from obtaining better assets due to his low-rank territory, the more his determination to evolve his territory increased. Nevertheless, he didn't allow the stressful thoughts to distract him and proceeded to go through all the lists. He moved on to the food item section, which was divided into 3 categories: seeds, raw, and processed. In the processed section, Rowan was surprised to find canned foods and drinks similar to those on Earth, including canned sardines and various canned beverages like beers and sodas. Nevertheless, he made up his mind not to get the processed items and only opt for the seeds and raw ones. After reviewing the food, he quickly visited the skills section and discovered some impressive skills. These were FF-rank and F-rank skills suited for various occupations ranging from farmer to warrior. Sadly, there was nothing related to magic. When he asked DeAndre, he received the same frustrating reply, that he couldn't lay his hands on them due to the restrictions, which only irritated Rowan further with DeAndre's system. After going through the entire list, Rowan proceeded to pick the items he wanted. He first returned to the weapons section and selected the most crucial items: swords, spears, bow and arrows, shields, and armors. Common grade sword selected. Enter number of items to add to cart. -0+. Common grade spear selected. Enter number of items to add to cart. -0+. Common grade bow and arrow selected. Enter number of items to add to cart. -0+. Common grade shield selected. Enter number of items to add to cart. -0+. Common grade leather armor selected. Enter number of items to add to cart. -0+. 3 windows popped up simultaneously. Without wasting time, Rowan entered 510 in each of them. As he entered the numbers, DeAndre's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. How was he going to pay for all that? Rowan was so focused on his purchase that he didn't notice the ugly expression on DeAndre's face as he stared at him. Confirm purchase of 510 common grade swords, spears, bows, arrows, leather armor, and shields for 2,075,000 evolution points. Yes/no. Rowan's finger hovered over the yes button. As his hand moved closer, DeAndre's eyes grew wider with alarm. Tom seemed to slow down comically at that moment. In a last-ditch effort to stop Rowan from making such a reckless decision, DeAndre shot up from his seat and sprinted toward him, his mouth slowly opening as he let out a loud no-oh. Time still moved comically slow as the atmosphere in the room suddenly turned tense. Rowan's finger was just 2 inches from the yes button. DeAndre was 7 feet away, but despite his desperate attempt, he couldn't stop Rowan in time. Ding! Purchase complete. 2,075,000 evolution points have been transferred to merchant DeAndre Dragarath. Purchased items have been transferred to inventory. These messages flashed before Rowan's eyes. Trade completed. 2,075,000 evolution points have been received from customer Rowan Winterseed. Congratulations, you have received a transmigrated business reward. These appeared in front of DeAndre, who was now only a foot away from Rowan. Time resumed its normal pace, yet the tension in the room remained palpable. Rowan blinked as the notifications vanished from his view, a satisfied smile forming on his lips. All done, he muttered, clearly pleased with himself. DeAndre, however, stood frozen. His arm remained outstretched mid-sprint, and his face was a twisted mixture of horror, disbelief, and betrayal. His mouth hung open like a fish gasping for air, yet no words came. It was as though his brain was still trying to process the sheer absurdity of what had just occurred. Rowan casually turned toward him, completely unaware of the internal meltdown happening just a few feet away. "What's up with you?" he asked, his brow furrowing slightly. "How did you afford all that? You're only an FF-rank territory lord." DeAndre's voice trembled, a mix of awe and horror, as though Rowan had just revealed a treasure trove of gold. Rowan gave him a puzzled look. Does being an FF-rank lord come with some kind of curse that makes them poor? DeAndre could only stare at Rowan, dumbfounded. He alone knew the true value of what Rowan had just spent. In the world outside Winterseed, currency was based on coins, with the lowest denomination being the copper coin. One copper coin held the same value as a $1 bill on Earth and was equivalent to 1 evolution point. 10 copper coins made a silver coin, and 10 silver coins equaled 1 gold coin. A single gold coin was enough to feed a family of 4 for 2 weeks, with some copper left as change. Rowan had just spent the equivalent of feeding over 20,000 families of 4 for 2 weeks. Ignoring the dumbfounded DeAndre, Rowan continued to select more items to purchase. As the merchant and owner of the system window Rowan was operating, DeAndre could see all his choices, and his eyes widened with every purchase. His earlier arrogance had vanished. He was no longer confident that Rowan would run out of funds after a few purchases. Initially, he expected Rowan to beg for credit, which would have allowed him to make more money by adding a 10% interest every month. This can't be happening, he thought with a deepening frown. He recalled Rowan telling the ladies that he had recently recovered and hadn't been in this world for more than a week. This meant his transmigration was less than 7 days old. Naturally, DeAndre hadn't expected Rowan to possess even half the evolution points he had just spent. Even if Rowan was a grinder who slaughtered monsters and completed quests as many and fast as he could, his total points should still be under 10,000 by now. Yet here he was, spending over 2 million like it was nothing. At this point, DeAndre, once a figure shrouded in mystery, began to find Rowan even more enigmatic. What was his secret? How did he accumulate such an absurd amount of evolution points in such a short time? Thoughts raced through DeAndre's mind, but he managed to calm his heart. Maybe he got a huge bonus from his newbie rewards and has already spent them. Surely he can't afford anything else after that first purchase. However, not even 2 seconds after thinking this, Rowan clicked on his second purchase. Confirmed to purchase food items for 800,000 evolution points. Yes/no. Just like before, Rowan wasted no time and made the purchase. The usual notifications were sent to both of them. When DeAndre saw this, a sharp pain shot through his chest as his last shred of arrogance crumbled. This time, he didn't even react. He just stood there, watching Rowan. Rowan, for his part, ignored the overdramatic merchant in front of him and continued with his purchases. Confirmed to purchase 100 skill books for 435,000. Yes/no. Confirmed to purchase 100 common-grade food pills for 10,000. Yes/no. Confirmed to purchase 3 blueprints for 600,000. Yes/no. Confirmed to purchase 20 F-rank monster cores for 50,000. Yes/no. One by one, Rowan confirmed each purchase, a calm smile playing on his lips. Thankfully, He had the inventory feature in his system. Otherwise, the room would have been filled to the brim with all the items he had just bought, especially the food, which was far more abundant than the other goods. He made sure to buy everything he needed without worrying about how many evolution points he had spent. He knew he could earn more than that within the week. In fact, he could hardly wait to see the positive reactions he would get from his followers tomorrow morning when he miraculously presented them with the food he had bought. In his mind, he was already calculating a profit of over 5 million evolution points, which would easily cover all his expenses in one go. Rowan turned to DeAndre, who was frozen in place. He wondered why he was acting too much. A few minutes passed, and DeAndre came back to his senses. He immediately told Rowan that he wanted to go back to his carriage to sleep, as he could afford to get more shocked than he already was. Rowan narrowed his eyes. "Just remember, my women are in your carriage. You'll have to find somewhere else to crash." DeAndre gave Rowan a really annoyed look. "Excuse me? Since when do you get to make rules about my carriage? And, for the record, do you think I'd touch your women without permission? What do you take me for?" Rowan shrugged and replied, "You don't exactly seem like the type to be interested in women, but still, they need privacy." DeAndre's eyes bulged. "What? I'm a guy. Of course I like women. What are you insinuating? Are you calling me gay?" Rowan shrugged once again. "I didn't say that, but if you say so, then so be it. Thou art gay." DeAndre's jaw dropped, and he was short for words for a few seconds. He tried to argue back by giving out points, but was quickly interrupted by Rowan. "Say no more. Your secret's safe with me." The next 5 minutes was spent with DeAndre trying to clear himself of the new title, but it was impossible. Each time he makes a point, Rowan uses it against him. After arguing for a few more minutes, he realized Rowan was only joking and finally relaxed. Afterwards, both of them made a deal, and DeAndre was given the room of one of the soldiers on duty to sleep on. After settling the whole issue, Rowan went back home to sleep for the short time left till the next morning arrives. Morning arrived pretty quickly, and the sun was already active, hanging in the bright sky and smiling over the world as usual, illuminating it with its divine, brilliant glow. In Glenwood Prison, Liera could be seen sitting on the ground inside the rough and dimly lit cell. The only light sneaking into the room was filtering through a few small holes in the walls. Liera now looked way better and healthier than she had several hours ago. Her eyes were no longer lifeless and dim like someone who had given up on life, but were now filled with hope and a willingness to continue living. Her pale expression had become rosy and healthy. Though her face still displayed an uncomfortable expression, there was a hint of willingness in her features. She could still recall the interaction from several hours ago with Ren. She had mistaken him for one of the vile and lustful men of Glenwood, but she had been proven wrong. If it hadn't been for the bread he gave her, she didn't think she would still be alive by now. If it hadn't been for his intervention, she might have already given up and taken her own life by now. SH still recalled his kind words as he spoke to her like a father to his daughter. It made her think of her late father. "I will make sure to keep him safe when Alara and the others return. Good people like him do not deserve to be punished with the bad," she resolved in her mind. Almost as though her thoughts had summoned him, the cell door creaked open, and Rin appeared outside with the same guard who had opened the door for him earlier. Rin walked into the cell with a joyful smile on his face, carrying a small basket in his hands. The guard gave Liera a nod before closing the cell door behind Rin. Liera couldn't help but wonder about the guard's position in all this, and why he was allowing someone to feed her even though Lord Fagin had clearly ordered no food should be given to her until she revealed the whereabouts of Alara and the others. "You look much better this morning, young lady," Rin greeted with a smile. This time, Liera didn't try to fight the chains binding her, and instead returned his greeting with a faint smile. "Thank you for the bread," she responded, her voice filled with sincere gratitude. No need to thank me. It was just bread. I brought something better this time." Rin lifted the basket in his hands. "I asked my daughter to prepare this for you. It's filled with vegetables. It'll help you recover much faster." Rin brought out the food from the basket. It contained 3 large plates, one with boiled potatoes, another with soup filled with vegetables and hearty-looking proteins. As he set them down, a sweet aroma wafted across the room, and Liera almost began to salivate. "Thank you." Her voice softened as she thanked him again, more genuinely this time. Rin simply waved it off and gestured for her to eat. The guard returned with 2 bowls of water, one for washing her hands and the other filled with clear drinking water. Liera quickly washed her hands and devoured the food as fast, yet gently, as she could. After finishing, she thanked him once more. Rin remained for a few more minutes before bringing up an important topic. "Liera, do you really think your sisters will be able to make it to Winter Seed in time and prepare your people against Lord Fagin?" he asked. "They will surely make it," Liera replied. Rin sighed at her response, then informed her of Lord Fagin's plan to start marching his soldiers toward Winter Seed in just a few hours. "This is not good," Liera said, her voice tinged with worry. "Alara and the others won't make it to Winter Seed in time. They're traveling on foot," she added, distressed. According to her calculations, Alara and the others wouldn't reach Winter Seed until the next day if they continued on foot. With horses, they could have traveled faster, but they had none with them. Lord Fagin's strong horses and soldiers would likely catch up with them if they began moving soon. As Liera became lost in thought, worrying about the predicament her people faced, Rin made a suggestion that left her wide-eyed, filled with shock and disbelief. Winter Seed. It was the brightest part of the early morning. However, unlike every other day when the villagers would leave to carry out their daily tasks, today they could all be seen heading toward the village square. 3 beautiful middle-aged women could be seen making their way down to the village square. 2 of them carried babies, while the third held her 7-year-old son's hand. "This is the first time Lord Rowan has summoned the entire village since he recovered," one of them said, her voice tinged with curiosity. "I'm a little nervous," another added. "It must be something really important. I just can't tell if it's good or bad news. My husband mentioned last night that a stranger came to the village. He said the man could use some kind of strange powers. He said the man was able to clean the meeting hall that has been abandoned for a long time with just the swipe of his hands. Can you believe it? Are you serious? That's unbelievable. If someone like that is real, then this meeting must be about him." Probably. Behind and ahead of the 3 women, other villagers could be seen heading toward the village square. Some were running, while others walked at a steady pace. At the village square, Rowan stood with DeAndre, Riella, Brandon, and the 5 captains in the central part of the vast space, which was now filled to the brim with villagers. It's been less than 30 minutes since the announcement was made, and everyone is already here. Even the strongest president on Earth wouldn't be able to control his people like this, Rowan thought with a sense of pride. He glanced to his right, where Riella stood, staring at the crowd with an amazed expression on her pretty face. Apparently, she had never seen this many people gathered together before. Rowan had invited her to stand beside him when she came to deliver his morning meal, as usual. He told her to get used to it, as she would be standing by his side more often in the future. Of course, this sentence created an awkward but romantic moment, and Rowan didn't miss the chance to taste her lips before they left for the village square, hand in hand like some teenage couple. Rowan smiled as he recalled the kiss, then turned back to the crowd gathered in front of him who stared at him with eyes filled with adoration, respect, curiosity, and panic. He tilted his head, observing their faces. His eyes fell on a particular young man with bruises all over his faces. He wondered what might have resulted to such ugly bruises, but did not concern himself too much about it. He cleared his throat and began his speech, unaware of the danger moving towards his territory. The people of Winter Seed gathered in the village square, standing attentively, ready to hear the speech from their beloved Lord Rowan. Men, women, teenagers, and little children all stared at Rowan with adoration in their eyes, as though they were gazing upon a messenger from heaven. However, the villagers couldn't help but also feel curious about the strikingly handsome man standing beside their lord. Some of the teenage girls couldn't take their eyes off him. His white hair, striking blue eyes, tall and slim physique, and a confident smile on his face made many of them blush profusely. While the teenage girls focused on DeAndre, the young women couldn't help but wonder why Riella was standing beside Rowan. They began to speculate about the nature of their relationship. Ignoring the emotions swirling in the crowd surrounding him, Rowan cleared his throat and began his speech. "Welcome, people of Winterseed. May your day be blessed by the graceful mercy of our ancestors." Rowan began, his gentle tone drifting like magic across the village square. He continued his speech, praising the efforts of the villagers for the good work they had done in the past few days and thanked them for not giving up on him, even while he had been unconscious for a long time. Since this was his first meeting with all the villagers, the last one having been only with men eligible for the army, Rowan decided to praise them all as much as possible to farm evolution points. He praised the efforts of the men, the virtues and charm of the women, and the purity of the children, complimenting as much as he could. The crowd reacted just as Rowan had expected. With his carefully chosen words and super voice, which naturally boosted his followers' motivation, he was able to farm a massive amount of points. All your followers are touched by your words and are on the verge of tears. 3,000 followers smile happily after your graceful words. 2,500 followers are amazed and hopeful because of your presence. Goal: motivate more than 3,000 followers has been achieved. Reward: 60,000 evolution points. Ding! 100x reward activated. 6 million evolution points have been rewarded. Seeing the rewards, Rowan's face brightened, and his zeal to farm more evolution points grew. Nevertheless, even with the massive gain, Rowan wasn't satisfied and continued praising them. Sadly, he couldn't earn as many evolution points from the continued speech as from the first. He earned a total of 2 million, but it was still more than enough. If DeAndre could see how many points Rowan had earned just by speaking, he'd definitely feel the urge to jump into a lake and drown himself. After Rowan finished thanking them, he got straight to the topic of the day, beginning by speaking about the food shortage that had plagued their village for a long time. He highlighted the suffering it had caused, making his followers recall the good old days. His words sparked sad reactions from the crowd. But this was exactly what he wanted. The sadder and more negative their emotions became, the higher the rewards he'd earn by making them positive again. He watched their reactions with calmness before continuing. "But that suffering and shortage of food ends today. Thanks to this gentleman standing beside me, who is a divine merchant, we've been able to secure a miraculous amount of food." Rowan gestured to DeAndre, who reacted by waving with a charming smile and giving a gentle bow. Rowan's words triggered new reactions from the crowd. They turned their attention to DeAndre. To some, he already looked angelic, like a man crafted by the gods. Yet they still wondered how this man could solve their food shortage. "Your followers are confused." Rowan ignored the notification and silently called out his inventory, giving it telepathic instructions. The villagers were still discussing among themselves, sharing their disbelief, when a small vortex suddenly appeared over the large empty space in the middle of the square. The vortex began swirling rapidly, expanding into a portal. A soft hum accompanied the swirling, drawing the villagers' attention. As their eyes fell on the expanding portal, their expressions turned to shock, curiosity, and a little bit of terror. Only Brandon, the soldiers, and Riella remained calm, having seen the portal before. For everyone else, it was a new and overwhelming sight. Nearly 30 seconds after the portal appeared, several large baskets filled with a variety of food, ranging from grains to fresh meat, began floating out of it. This time, not only the villagers, but even those who had seen the portal before stared at the miraculous event unfolding before them, their eyes wide in disbelief. Some began to tremble, pointing toward the portal. What is this? This can't be real. Food is coming out of nowhere. Look at that big chunk of beef. We're finally going to eat meat. Our Lord is truly blessed." In less than a week after his recovery, he's connected with a messenger from heaven. Our village is going to prosper. A miracle. Mom, look, such a big basket of apples. This looks exactly like my dream of the sky raining down food. The villagers reacted just as Rowan had predicted. Their expressions shifted from terror and shock to acceptance in a matter of seconds after witnessing the vast amount of food floating down from the portal. As the food supplies rained from the sky, the villagers' joy erupted. They began screaming happily. Some shed tears of joy, others danced, while children rushed toward the falling food, their faces full of glee. As Roland saw the food falling miraculously from the sky, his expression turned to pure joy. He quickly recalled his conversation with his wife when they discussed how hard it had become to feed their baby. He remembered the sadness in her voice and the crying of their hungry baby. But now everything was going to change. With emotions swelling inside him, Roland raised his sword and chanted loudly, "Long live Lord Rowan, the Lord who resurrected. Long live Lord Rowan, the Lord who resurrected. Long live Lord Rowan, the Lord who resurrected." The voices of the people of Winterseed thundered across the land, chanting the name of their Lord with joy, pride, and admiration thundering from their voices. Their hands were lifted in the air as they chanted. The village square became intense following the chants, emotions drifting across. Rowan observed the villagers chanting his name with a sweet smile on his face. For the first time, he was getting appreciated by a lot of people. The feeling was blissful and something that would stick in his memory forever. His heartbeat became faster, each beat carrying his joy at this moment. Rowan was so caught up in this emotional moment that he ignored the numerous notifications going off with the system. DeAndre was also shocked as well. While he was a merchant who has been to numerous lands, far greater than Rowan's, he has never felt such a sincerely emotional moment. A moment where everyone adored and worshipped their Lord as though he was an angel sent out of heaven to save them in time of distress. Their voices were loud and carried their emotions, their faces bright with heartfelt joy, something that is almost impossible to achieve by powerful emperors and kings. With the display of emotions of the crowd, DeAndre realized that Rowan is actually something else. His territory is weak, his power is low, and his village is going through so many crises, but their faith in him did not waver at all, and their love were sincere. This guy has the potential to surpass other transmigrated lords and gain the supreme reward, he thought to himself as he observed the happily smiling Rowan. The chants continued, and the mood was really bright. Rowan enjoyed it for a few more minutes before waving at the villagers as he gave instructions. Due to the unavailability of storehouse, the food will be stored in the spatial storage device gifted to me by my friends, and every day a nice portion will be shared amongst everyone to prevent the food from spoiling, Rowan announced. The villagers were curious about the strange device that Rowan talked about, but they didn't question him. They had just seen food coming out of a portal, so they believed that such an item existed as long as Rowan said so. On the other hand, DeAndre wondered how Rowan was able to come up with such a cool lie using his name, but he didn't voice it out and maintained his cool. The next 2 hours were spent distributing food among the people. Everyone received a big portion of food supplies that was more than enough for a day. With the help of the captains and senior cook, Leora and Tyora, the distribution of food became even faster. As the villagers got their portion of food, they sincerely appreciated Rowan in their heart, which earned him large amounts of evolution points by the seconds. 2 more hours passed. The villagers had already left to their various homes with their portion, while Rowan and the soldiers remained. Riella, DeAndre, and Brandon stayed behind as well. Rowan had already stored the food supply back in his inventory after the distribution was over. He stored them in a trickish way. He held a ring and stretched his hands towards the mountain-sized food supplies and pretended to chant strange words while sneakily opening his inventory. This simple trick saved him from a lot of explanations and also kick-started his trap for the Judas in their midst. The soldiers were gathered in the village square waiting for the next order from Rowan. At a corner of the village square, Rowan could be seen discussing with DeAndre. "You want to buy more?" DeAndre asked with eyes widened in shock. Rowan responded casually, "Yes, but that will be after we catch the idiot leaking information to Glenwood." DeAndre could only sigh and nod as he noted to himself for the umpteenth time that Rowan wasn't ordinary. "Remember the plan we made last night?" Rowan asked. "Yeah, you want to start it now, or after you are done speaking with your soldiers?" DeAndre inquired. "After speaking with them, we need the captains to be present while we make a quick change of plans. The Judas will get the sudden urge to escape and report. Then we can catch them," Rowan explained. His plan wasn't that complex or smart, but it was good enough to catch the Judas. Both of them discussed more before returning to the soldiers. Rowan gave a lengthy speech to his soldiers, going straight to the point and informing them about their plans to start their attack on Glenwood right away. "What, right away?" Bryce was the first to react. "Lord Rowan, our attack was not scheduled for today. Why the sudden change of plan? Did something happen?" Roland asked with concern. He doesn't doubt the leadership of Rowan, but he couldn't help but wonder why an abrupt change was taking place. The other captains were also curious as well. At this moment, all their status either reflected shock or curious, and their faces reflected the same expressions, making it difficult to fish the Judas out. The soldiers' reactions were also the same as the captains. This made Rowan realize that God's eyes wasn't that great with character emotions, but he didn't stay on that thought. A plan was already in place, and that person would be caught soon. "I can't tell you all the reason for my abrupt change of plan, but you will know about it when we get to Glenwood," Rowan let out. His voice sparked reactions in the soldiers. They began discussing the implication of the abrupt attack. Most of them haven't been to a real war with fellow humans before, but they knew that abrupt change of plan could lead to a lot of casualties. Brandon and the captains tried to talk Rowan out of it, but Rowan told them not to worry and trust in him. They could only relax and pray that their Lord's plan works. After the clattering calmed down, Rowan announced the new battle strategies. It was a lot different from their previous one. In their previous strategy, they planned to wait for the soldiers to return as usual to claim their weekly cut of the village's harvest and ambush them, then use their horses and weapons to charge at the village and catch them at a time when they didn't expect. While the new plan was a lot chaotic, the captains found some perfect attack pattern that would wreck Glenwood. "Go home and take this news to your family. Gather in the next 2 hours. We will leave immediately afterwards." Rowan dismissed the soldiers. They agreed and left for their homes. As they left, Rowan gave a signal to DeAndre, and he nodded before walking towards the back of a tree, out of sight of everyone. He brought out a golden slip and tore it. Immediately, his body was shrouded in a gentle blue glow, and he disappeared after a few seconds. Riella, who has been listening to Rowan, walked to his side with sadness in her eyes. "Make it back victorious, all right?" Rowan turned to her and nodded with a charming smile. "Of course I will be victorious. Why will I fail when a sexy lady is waiting for me to make babies with her?" He teased. Riella blushed profusely, but she didn't overly react, as she was already used to his teasing, which she cherished.